Part 111. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1102. She is fierce, ruthless, and has a bad temper. She slandered you everywhere in the beginning. Only now do I know that the big mistake has been made. Fortunately, it is not too late. I will definitely. Shentenguin looked at Lily and said nothing, and even flirted with her. With a smile on her lips, she was overjoyed, thinking that Lily had been moved by what she had just said, and worked harder and harder. Just when she was about to express her feelings, regrets, and hatred for Duangilan's angry voice rang out. Shen. Teng. When. Duangilan gritted his teeth every time he said a word, and his voice was sinister. The affectionate look on Shentenguin's face quickly turned into guilt and panic. He subconsciously turned his head and saw Duangilan heading towards him like a little lion. She rushed over with a fierce expression as if she wanted to eat someone. She stretched out her hand and grabbed Shentenguin's face. "Are you worthy of me? Are you worthy of me?" Duangilan seemed to be going crazy, grabbing and beating Shentenguin. "I was so good to you. Your house is being called around by that shameless bitch of yours. You, Shentenguin, can't lift your shoulders. Even sex is in a hurry. You go out to eat, drink and fool around all day long. I don't dislike you at all. You dare to despise me." Duangilan's nose was filled with tears and tears. When she heard that he was saying bad things about her, Shentenguin was a little panicked. But as soon as she said these words, Shentenguin felt guilty and guilty. It quickly turned to anger. He was a grown man, but he was caught and beaten by a woman. Duangilan had always been so willful and never knew how to save some face for him. It was the same when he went out to Chunfeng Tower to drink flower wine that day. Without saying a word, she rushed into the building and beat herself. It would be fine if she was fighting like this at home, but she was embarrassing like this outside. Looking at Duangilan's fierce look at this moment, is there any trace of the tenderness and grace of a daughter's family? Her appearance was inherently ugly, but her married life in the past 2 years had not become any more beautiful. On the contrary, it made her look a little older. This tigress, this evil woman, ugly and saltless, I don't know how she became blind in the first place. Take a fancy to her. Get out of here. I'm going to divorce you, I'm going to divorce you." Although Shentenguin tried his best to resist, he was still no match for Duangilan in a rage. He was pinned down by her and kept beating her, with slaps in the face. The whipping made Shentenguin's hair disheveled and he struggled to get up. His originally fair skin turned red from time to time, and there were both palm prints and fingernail prints on it. The farce here quickly attracted the attention of people around. Even Mrs. Lu, who was lying in the back room, heard the commotion. When she came out, she saw the two couples fighting in a ball. She almost fainted with her eyes open. Mrs. Lu was so anxious that she looked around. When she saw Lily beside her, her eyes lit up. "Quick, quick, separate them. How can they behave like they are fighting? Duangilan, you are a wicked woman. How can you be reasonable? You are ugly and vicious. You dare to hit your husband. You are so unfaithful. I want to divorce you." Shentenguin was trembling with anger now and kept coming out of his mouth. Repeating these two sentences back and forth, Duangilan became even more angry. "Strike harder. You dare to divorce me? You dare to divorce me? You useless thing. It was because of you. I even defrauded my mother out of all her money. You used it to eat, drink and gamble. I don't even dare to go back to my mother's house. I'm so good to you. How dare you hook up with a little goblin behind my back?" Mrs. Lu was anxiously trying to push Lily to pull the two people apart when she heard Duangilan's words. Mrs. Lu was stunned for a moment, and after a long while she came back to her senses. She thought about the remaining 2 taels of silver that Duan had coaxed away from her when she returned to Ning after their marriage. She had kept it for self-defense, but she didn't expect that she kept it for self-defense. However, Duan coaxed her with a few words. Duan said that the money was for Shen Tenguin's education and that he would support her after he was in high school. For the sake of this little daughter, how hard has she lived these years? It was not easy for her to earn this money, and it was just money. What made Lu feel most chilling was that she had waited for so many years, and it was only at this time that Gilan finally told the truth, that she had defrauded the money. The good daughter she had doted on since she was a child turned her elbows outward when she got married. For a man, for Shen Tenguin, she even deceived herself. She is now in such a penniless situation, and now she knows that Duan has taken the money she was supposed to spend to support herself in her old age was spent on Shen Tenguin's food, drink, and whoring. When Mrs. Lu thought of this, she couldn't lift it up in one breath. Her legs were so weak that she fell to the ground. Duan was cursing until she heard someone screaming and looked up, only to see Mrs. Lu fainting. Apparently, Mrs. Lu had heard what she just said. Duan was unhurried at the moment. The impulsive side of her character had already overcome her rationality. She saw Lily standing beside her, yelled ouch and rushed towards her. "It's all your fault, it's all your fault." If it hadn't been for Lily, Shen Tenguin would not have been fascinated by her, and he would not have fought with Shen Tenguin. Of course, Shen Tenguin would not have said that he wanted to divorce his wife. Duan eyes turned red when she thought of this. "You shameless bitch, you are too old to get married, but you still want to seduce someone else." Before she could pounce on Lily, and before she finished speaking, Lily had already reached out and lifted a round stool, hit it on her chest, and knocked her to the ground. Duan beating methods were probably more than enough to deal with Shen Tenguin, but in front of Lily, they were completely disorganized. Duan was hit in the chest by a stool. Obviously the stool was not heavy, but at this time, his chest felt like it was attacked by a huge boulder. "I just felt as if my ribs were broken, and it hurt to breathe." "The Duan family didn't teach you well, let me teach you well." Lily raised her foot and kicked Duan on the cheek. This kick made Duan lose all feeling in his jaw, making it numb and cold. After a while, she calmed down, and then the overwhelming pain entered her consciousness, making her body start to tremble. This kind of pain was far more painful than what Duan remembered when Hua Chunfang's mother slapped her face with scissors. She was shaking non-stop. Lily squatted down, stretched out his hand to pull her hair, pressed her head, and pulled her head. He hit the ground hard several times, causing Duan scalp to crack and blood gushing out. It made stars appear in her eyes before Lily stopped. "Let me clear your mind. Are you awake now?" She didn't get angry, and her tone was cold and indifferent, but Duan was trembling with fear, screaming and struggling, but couldn't struggle at all. "If you want to seduce people, who can be better than you? You don't look very good, but you have a big heart. You do seemingly innocent things, but they are all shameless things. How dare you blame me? This Huai who in the city doesn't know where your man came from." Duan shivered every time Lily said a word. She was still a little unconvinced, but she was beaten so hard that she didn't dare to open her mouth. "You dare to say that I am shameless, but this mouth is really eloquent. Xiu Niang, bring me a pair of scissors. Today I will pick out all her teeth and cut off her mouth. I want to take a look, and she will use it later." "What kind of mouth are you talking about?" Lily sneered twice, seeing that Duan still looked scared but unyielding. She was so pampered by Mrs. Lu that she would be lawless and would never be afraid of anyone in her life. As soon as Lily said the words, Duan was really scared. She screamed at the top of her lungs and reached out to grab Lily's hand. But for some reason, this sister's hand looked very delicate, but she grabbed it. but it was as if she was restrained by iron claws, preventing her from struggling. I was wrong, I was wrong. Duan cried and shouted. When she saw someone actually handing Lily the scissors, she was so frightened that her courage almost broke. She cried desperately, I was wrong, I shouldn't talk nonsense about my sister, I shouldn't talk nonsense, I shouldn't steal your marriage, but, these were done by Shentenguin and have nothing to do with me. Shentenguin got up from the ground at this time. His face was scratched by Duan. Hearing this, he became very angry. How come it has nothing to do with you? When you made a scene in Huachunfang and took me ashore, you were there on North Street. In the back alley, you said it yourself. When he said this, Ms. Lu was pinched and woke up leisurely, letting out a long breath. You said that your mother was partial and only loved your sister since childhood. You said that they were sorry for you. How vicious and excessive your sister was. I was blind at that time and mistakenly believed your lies. This has harmed my life. Shentenguin looked up to the sky and sighed, feeling moved when he spoke. The wound on his face screamed ouch again. After hearing this, Ms. Lu felt that her hands and feet were cold, and she trembled and asked, did she really say that? Of course. What I heard with my own ears, how can it be false? Otherwise, how could I marry her? When I was in the painting studio, I asked her if she was sent by Mrs. Duan to follow me, and she clearly admitted it that day. When Shentenguin thought of these past events, his heart burst into unknown anger. If Duan behavior that day hadn't misled him, how could he have given up the pearl and chosen the fisheye, and how could he have given up the lily and married Duan, who had no merit? It's a pity that I only discovered after I got married that this bitch doesn't know how to serve my parents-in-law and husband. She stretches out her hand when food comes and opens her mouth when clothes come. She has a lazy temperament and has countless crimes. Even when I go out to play, she makes a big fuss, which makes me lose face. Today it is necessary to divorce her, and we will never have any ties to her in this life. If he had married Lily back then, and now he had money and a family fortune, his classmates would have been extremely envious of such a beautiful daughter-in-law. It was a pity that he had been tricked by Duan, which led to his current end. You believe it yourself, what does it have to do with me? Duan couldn't help but feel a little scared when she heard Shentenguin expose her past, and drank with a guilty conscience. The two of them were biting each other, and it was so funny that they laughed to death. To be continued. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1103. Shentenguin was already furious, but after hearing Duan irresponsible words, he became even more angry and trembled, pointing at Duan and yelling. Ms. Lu was trembling all over and coughed several times. Gilan, tell me, tell your mother, tell Shentenguin, mother has been sorry for you since you were a child, and has been partial to you. Duan was squeaking. What Shentenguin said was actually just said casually that day. If Shentenguin hadn't mentioned it now, she might have forgotten it. At this time, old things were brought up again, especially under such circumstances. Duan only felt a feeling as if someone had stripped her naked in broad daylight. When Ms. Lu asked her something, she actually couldn't answer it at all. After a while, he whispered, he must have remembered it wrong. At this point, Shentenguin was determined. When he heard that Duan dared to do something, he couldn't help but sneered twice. That day in the back alley, you thought I wasn't awake yet, so you lay on me and hugged and kissed me. If not, how could I, a great scholar, feel that I was interested in you because I was worried about slandering your name? Lose. You said that your father passed away early, and your mother only liked your sister. You said that you were unhappy at home. I pity you in my heart and believe it. I thought that even though your appearance is slightly worse, your nature is not bad. If I had known earlier your heart is so vicious and you are more than 10 times uglier than your appearance. How could I say anything about marrying another person? Duan Gilan, do you dare to swear to God that you never said this? At this time, people respected ghosts and gods the most. Duan Gilan really didn't dare to swear when Shen Tenguin was so excited. Seeing her wandering eyes and not daring to look at him, Mrs. Lu felt even more disappointed. She has doted on her daughter for so many years and took care of her in everything. He was even ignored and alienated by his eldest daughter because of this, but now he has ended up like this. Mrs. Lu was disheartened and shook her head. Forget it. I don't care. One generation doesn't care about the second generation. Since you think of me like this behind my back, you can die or live. I don't care. No more words. For a moment, Mrs. Lu seemed to have aged more than 10 years. She stumbled up and walked towards the backyard. After Shen's mother was pulled up at the other end of the street, she heard another conflict in the Duan's shop. When she came over in a hurry, she had missed the scene of Duan Gilan beating Shen Tenguin violently. Mrs. Lu had already entered the inner courtyard. Only Lily was still there in the shop. Duan Gilan sat on the ground with a guilty look, looking disheveled, which made Mother Shen's eyes as sharp as needles. Mom, I want to divorce Duan Gilan. When Shen Tenguin saw his mother, a sense of grievance welled up in his heart. If he had listened to Mother Shen's words that day, how could he have ended up like this? Thinking of the scholar among his youth. I originally thought that I would have a bright future, but I didn't expect that my life would be ruined because I was deceived by Duan Gilan that day. How about that? Duan Gilan was a little anxious when he heard Shen Tenguin's words. She had just been broken by Lily. She was still frightened when she saw Lily. Mrs. Lu had clearly made it clear that she didn't care about her. Now that she was married to the Shen family, she was born as a member of the Shen family and died as a ghost of the Shen family. Shen Tenguin could do it so easily. I just want to divorce her. That's not okay. Her original character was fearless. At this moment, she began to regret that she had acted too impulsively. Now she was about to cause trouble. Mother Shen stared at her coldly. You have no respect for your elders and dare to hit your mother-in-law and husband. We have been married for more than 2 years, but there has been no news about her. For such a wicked woman, even if she files a lawsuit with the government and divorces you, the county magistrate will not blame us at all. Duan Gilan listened to Shen mother's words made her feel isolated and helpless. When she got into trouble in the past, Madame Lu could settle it for her. No matter what kind of trouble she got into, Madame Lu always had a solution. But who can she rely on now? She originally had a sister, but with today's commotion, the already thin relationship between sisters was completely disturbed. She sat on the ground in a daze, and Lily stared at this group of people. If you have something to do, go back and say it yourself, whether you want to divorce or not, don't disturb my business in my shop. Although Duan Gilan used to be the Duan family, the water thrown by his married daughter will never be with us again. Nothing to do with it. All the Shen family members were driven out of the store, and people gathered around to watch the excitement. The Shen family members had already left, but these people had not dispersed for a long time. On the blocked road, a group of people were blocked by onlookers. The boy driving the carriage respectfully said to the carriage, "Mr. Lang, there are too many people ahead, so why not go another way? I don't know what happened, but so many people have gathered around me." The curtain of the carriage was blown by the wind, occasionally revealing a figure lying on a soft couch with a book inside. Hearing the words of the boy driving the carriage, he did not make a sound, but occasionally the sound of turning the pages of a book could be heard. If we had sent someone to talk to Mr. Wang earlier, these unruly people blocking the road would have been driven away by now, the boy complained in a low voice, and the crowd broke up at the door of the Lily shop in front of him because of the farce. The lively people gradually left, and the originally blocked road gradually opened up, and the carriage began to move again. The boy wiped the sweat from his forehead and then drove the carriage. The people in the carriage were passing by the previous shop. At that moment, he stretched out his fingers to hold the carriage curtain and opened it a little. With a sudden glance, he vaguely saw a shadow sitting in the shop. His heart moved. When he looked again, he saw that the carriage had passed by and he opened the curtain. Coming down, a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. 2 days later, a big shot from Huaichang came to Duan's shop in person, saying that he was here to propose marriage to Mrs. Duan for the eldest husband of the Qi family in Jiangning, and the person who personally arranged the matchmaking was the wife of the county magistrate of Huaichang. As soon as the news came out, the whole Huaichang was shocked. The Qi family of Jiangning was not an official family. Although it was a merchant, because the Qi family of Jiangning had donated some money to the court in the early years, it gained the reputation of being a foreigner, and its status was higher than that of ordinary merchants. The Qi family in Jiangning is engaged in the rice, grain, and cloth business, and has become a brand of Huangshan. In recent years, the Qi family has developed even more rapidly. When paying tribute to the court 2 years ago, the Grand Master of Huaichang County ordered officers and soldiers to pay tribute to the imperial merchants. Tributes open the way. Now that I think about it, it is still a rare event in Huai City in recent years. This time, Lily had already made preparations for the possibility that the mission might not be completed successfully. No one had come to propose marriage in these years, and she herself was not that enthusiastic about getting married. She thought that if this outcome continued, in the end, no one dared to come to propose marriage. Even if the original owner was dissatisfied with the task, it was not her fault. Now that someone came to propose marriage, she was a little hesitant. If she were from a small family, she would marry without hesitation. However, although the Qi family was not an aristocratic family, it was still wealthy, and the matchmaker was the wife of the county magistrate. The eldest husband of the Qi family was so boastful that he couldn't find anything in the world, but he just said that the uncle has never been able to fall in love with anyone in these years. When he passed the shop that day, he fell in love with Lily. Ms. Lu was happy. If her daughter could get married, she would be relieved. After discovering that Duan Gilan told Shen Tenguan that she was partial, Ms. Lu always felt a little guilty every time she saw Lily. The fact that the eldest daughter is still unable to get married has something to do with her original preference for Duan Gilan. Now someone has finally proposed marriage, and the other person is from such a better family than Shen Tenguan. After marrying, she will no longer have to blame herself. The most important thing is that when Lily marries into the Qi family, with such a large family fortune, she will be a ready-made wealthy wife. She may no longer like this shop, and she will have the capital to settle down. She only regretted that she had agreed to Lily's marriage because of Duan Gilan. Now she felt regretful when she thought about it. She wanted to persuade Lily, but with the relationship between the two of them now, she couldn't open her mouth. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 1104. Ms. Lu had been very anxious these days. She wanted to inquire about her daughter's decision, but she didn't know how to ask. After thinking about it, she finally couldn't stand it any longer and found an opportunity to take advantage of Lily's breakfast in the morning to ask herself. Open the door. Since she was angry with Duan Gilan last time, Ms. Lu has never spoken to Lily again. Although she felt a little embarrassed at first when she opened her mouth, she gradually calmed down as time went by. What about the Qi family? How are you going to solve it? The news has spread throughout Huaichang, and this matter is not a secret. When the wife of the county magistrate came to propose marriage in person, she did not shy away from it, and it had already spread. People talk about this kind of thing the most. They always talk about it several times after dinner. The two embroiderers in the shop sometimes whisper to each other. It's not strange for Mrs. Lu to know that Lily, but Lily heard Mrs. Lu ask about it during the meal. Her movements paused. How to solve it? She pretended to be confused, but Mrs. Lu was a little anxious. You are not young, almost 20 years old, do you really want to be an old girl for the rest of your life? It's rare to meet such a good partner now, and it's my wife who protects her as a matchmaker. I'm really lucky to have cultivated it in my previous life. If I can get married, I won't be scolded by your father when I meet him. Who harmed me because I'm not young? When you helped Duan Gilan deliberately smear my reputation, why didn't you expect that I was not young? What does it have to do with you whether I am an old girl or not? Mother, don't forget, you sold me when Duan was helping Duan Gilan at Buzzwang. She once said that I would have to make the final decision on my marriage in the future. When Lily mentioned this, Mrs. Liu's intestines turned green with regret when she thought about it. For Duan Gilan, a little beast, she really owed this damn girl in her previous life. At this moment, hearing Lily's words to block her, Mrs. Lu endured her anger and said, "What's wrong with the Chi family? The eldest husband happens to be 20. If it weren't for the marriage, he might not get your turn. They are newly wealthy households. That is to say, he first donated his money to the official status of a Yuan Weilang, and then he got rid of his humble status as a businessman. Gradually, he became more and more impressive day by day. The eldest son of the Chi family has not married yet, and there were rumors that he might lose his sleeve. Either she is inhumane, Mrs. Lu has also heard of it, but now she thinks about it, her daughter will never get married, which is also a worry for her. Instead of combing her own hair and dyeing at home, she might as well get married, and no matter how she lives in the future. Okay. It is always better than what others point out. Is this how Mom wants me to get married? Lily wiped her mouth with a handkerchief and looked at Mrs. Lu seriously. Her eyes lit up and she nodded. The male senior should get married and the female senior should get married. I also hope that you'll find a good home. Lily laughed. In that case, I think so. It's just after I got married. Mom is old now, how do you survive? You don't have any money in your hands, and Duan Gilan destroyed all your family property, and you only have. I have been defrauded of all my savings. If I get married, who will support you? When Mrs. Lu heard what she said, she just thought that she was already arranging her own affairs after getting married. She couldn't help but feel elated, and was about to say that she already had this shop and this house. She also did business. From now on, I can enjoy the success and make a living without any problems. Maybe I can still have enough money to support my younger daughter, even though she has a strong temperament like Gilan. But after all, it fell out of his own belly. How could mother and daughter have an overnight feud? It's just that it's hard to express this to Lily. I was deeply afraid that if Lily heard this, she would be blamed for being partial. Mrs. Lu endured it again and again. Before she could tell Lily to leave her alone and just get married, she was about to say that she would arrange her wedding properly, but Lily sighed. I'm afraid my mother has been waiting for me to get married, so that I won't be an eyesore in front of you all day long, right? I can marry, but I will sell this shop to myself as a dowry. After all, I will marry into a family like the Chi family. If I don't have any money, it's always unsafe. Lily thought for a few days and felt that she should marry the Chi family when they proposed marriage. In order to fulfill the original owner's wish, she was still prepared to marry into the Chi family. With the money from selling the shop, she planned to buy a few beautiful maids to marry her in, which could be regarded as repaying the Chi family for giving her status. As for Mr. Chi Dallin, she was not afraid of what the other party would do to her. She had martial arts skills. If the other party wants to harm her, she has many ways to prevent the other party from taking advantage. As soon as Lily finished speaking, The smile on Liu's face quickly became stiff. She stared at Lily in disbelief, and the color on her face suddenly seemed to have faded. One moment, Ms. Liu was thinking about her daughter getting married and living in this small shop. The next moment, Lily shattered her dream. She took the initiative to persuade Lily to get married today, but what she got was this ending. Then, the shop is sold, what should I do? Ms. Liu panicked for a moment. When she saw Lily was about to leave after finishing her words, she spoke quickly. When Lily heard her tone, she curled up her lips. What should I do? Mom, isn't it? Anduin Gielan's mother said at the beginning, a bowl of water is leveled, the shop gives half to me, half to Duan Gielan, and you keep the rest for old age. Now I don't want a penny. The money that mother used to support herself in old age was cheated by Duan Gielan. This it has nothing to do with me, right? Although she is not a son, my mother treats her better than a son, and it is only natural that she will support you in your old age. After saying this, Lily ignored Ms. Liu's panic look, got up and went out. From the beginning when he wanted Lily to get married, to the end where he would be homeless if Lily got married, Ms. Liu was simply caught off guard by this turn of events. She had shamelessly tried to persuade Lily to think again, but Lily did not give her another chance. She agreed to be the matchmaker of the county magistrate's wife, and the wedding was quickly decided. Since both parties were already old, there was no time to delay. Although the Chi family was a little unhappy about Lily's marriage, they were considered to be well matched, and the daughter married at a high age. It was the custom at this time for men to marry younger men, so there were not many twists and turns in the end. Soon when it was time to get married, Lily sold the shop, but the money was in her own hands. She rented a house for Liu again. This scene was very similar to when Duan Gielan got married. They were selling the same shop and renting a house. Live, but at that time the Liu family had not yet reached the point where it is now at the end of its rope. The Chi family's wealth is not as shabby as Shen Tenguin's back then. Lily herself has money, so even if the wedding date is set in a hurry, it's not like Duan Gielan looked cheap back then. Although they had told the Shen family not to have any further contact with each other, on the wedding day, the Shen family still came to enjoy the happiness. Duan Gielan saw that the county magistrate's wife was protecting the match because of this marriage. And many of the servants who came to help were very jealous. Shen Tenguin did not divorce her for the time being, purely because Lily was promised a good family, and her life in the Shen family became increasingly difficult. She seemed to have aged 7 or 8 years in a few days. Although Mother Shen might not be able to beat her, she could find many ways to frustrate her. She knew that she had no choice now, and although she was dissatisfied, she did not dare to be as arrogant as before. Look like. Recalling that when she got married, the courtyard was deserted, Ms. Liu once said that her first marriage was worse than filling a house. Comparing Lily's wedding today, Duan Gielan suddenly remembered that when she got married more than 2 years ago, Ms. Liu had asked her if she wanted to marry the Shen family, and said that the Shen family didn't pay attention to her during the wedding, which would be seen in the future. He won't take her too seriously. Duan Gielan did not think of this at that time, but now it seems that what Liu said is right. She watched the Chi family's huge wedding team with jealousy, and she saw the Chi family's eldest husband sitting on a tall horse wearing a wedding robe to welcome the bride. Gentle and elegant, although he is a businessman, he is no worse than Shen Tenguin, a scholar. The moment Duan Gielan saw the eldest son of the Chi family, she felt a little unwilling. This sister of hers had a bad reputation and had not married until she was 20. Now she could marry such a good man again. Looking back at herself, even if she had snatched the person she almost wanted to be engaged to was now snatched up. But it's nothing more than a bag of chaff. Businessmen value profits more than separation. Women are changeable. Duan Gielan's heart was burning, but Shen Tenguin already looked like he was heartbroken in pain. He poured the wine on the table for the guests and began to drink, chanting 2 words in his mouth. A sour poem, businessmen value profit above all else. How can I be sincere to you? You dismiss my sincerity. Sure enough, a woman who is flirtatious is the easiest to change her heart, he murmured to himself, as if obsessed. Some people walked by and took a look, and they all looked down upon the poor relatives of the Shen family who came to seek marriage. Some servants thought he was blocking the way and saw that he was drunk, so they chased him away in an angry voice, and Shen Tenguin left angrily. Qi Dongying, the eldest son of the Qi family, married Lily and went home. The ceremony was completed and he chose a hijab to complete the ceremony. The moment the hijab fell, Lily was originally thinking about how to tell him that she had brought a maid to warm his room, but when I saw those familiar eyes, I felt like a big stone fell in my heart. Although she said it cruelly to Ms. Lu that day, Ms. Lu was the mother of the original owner. Every 10 days, Lily would still ask someone to send her a small amount of copper coins. She temporarily rented the house and paid it to Lu every month. Liu's copper coins are just enough for her to live a good life. If Lu can accept her fate, Lily will support her until her death. This money cannot make her life rich and glorious, but it is enough for her to live a decent life. 3 years later, it was time to take the exam every 3 years. On the edge of Huaicheng, a couple was carrying shelves. The man covered his face with a fan. He would laugh with everyone he saw and ask if he wanted to pick out some rouge and gouache. The woman looked a bit older, and her expression was a bit humble. It's all your fault. If it weren't for you, how could I, a great scholar, end up in this situation? Shen Tenguin complained repeatedly. Although he had the skills of a scholar, his hand was ruined and he could not even write letters for others. Because there was so much trouble that day, the Shen family became the laughing stock of Huaicheng. Many families refused to hire him as a private tutor. As time went by, the Shen family was heavily in debt. He once thought about divorcing his wife and marrying another, but Duan Gilan was unwilling to live or die because he had nowhere to go. In addition, the Shen family was in such a situation. If he divorced his wife, he would have a good reputation. It was not easy to find her again, so the days passed easily. Just to make a living, he, a scholar, had no choice but to put down his account books. At first he made some paper fans to sell, and then bought some rouge and gouache to coax women in the streets to buy them, earning a small amount of money to survive. The regrets and thoughts I had when I was studying that day are like a dream in Huangliang. Duan Gilan cursed a few words in her heart when she heard him scolding her so harshly, with a fierce look on her face. She couldn't bear it anymore and yelled at him, "I have been unlucky for 8 lifetimes to marry you. If she hadn't married Shen Tenguin, why would she? I offended Lily, and ruined my relationship with my sister for such a worthless man. If, as my mother said, I had a better relationship with Lily, now that Lily is well married, I should support her anyway." Those words that stripped Duan Gilan of her girlhood were extremely harsh to her ears, but at this moment she wished that her dreams were all real. The two couples exchanged words with each other, and the quarrel became more and more fierce. In the end, they almost fought back. The loving couple in the plot had no choice but to live alone without the support of a large amount of money. When they began to quarrel over food, rice, oil, salt, and vinegar, the so-called love was just a layer of sweet illusion. It's just medicated candy, it's so bitter inside. That bitch Duan Bei, now that she's married to a good man, doesn't know how to be considerate of her mother's family. I'm her sister after all. Duan Gilan burst into tears. When the stretcher rack got tired, she threw the rack away. She sat down at the foot of the willow tree, crying until her eyes were red. Her feet hurt from walking all day long. The items on the shelves were not sold out for a while. Her face was tanned by the sun on such a hot day. Now she earns money by herself. Only then did she realize how difficult it is to make money. Back then, she had so much property, but she was completely ruined because of her own actions. When Duan Gilan thought about what happened back then, she regretted it even more. She cried until her nose and tears flowed. But now she didn't care, and wiped it on the willow roots. How could she still have the smart and delicate look that Shen Tenguin liked in the past? Shen Tenguin gave her a disgusting look and sat farther away from her. He also thought of the woman who married someone else because she refused to wait for him. They both cursed in their hearts. The couple who had vowed in their hearts to be inseparable, now remember that it was just a dream in their teenage years. If I didn't marry you, I don't know how good my life would be now. I still have to carry this thing, and I can't earn 3 or 5 coppers a day. If I hadn't married you, I would have achieved fame now, so why would I need to be embarrassed and run around in the streets? The two of them were talking and getting angry. They started fighting again after they disagreed. Now Shen Tenguin he lost his integrity and appearance as a scholar, and after working as a salesman for more than a year, when he and Duan Gilan fought again, they were evenly matched. The two had fought and scolded each other enough. They were exhausted and panting. Life had to go on. Duan Gilan wiped away her tears. Her body was still burning with pain, but she had no choice but to pick up the shelf and yell, her voice gradually disappearing in the distance. In the alley. To be continued. P.S. 4,000 words have been updated. I hope my second update today will be on time. This is a small update to make up for the 1,000 words missing yesterday. By the way, I heard people say that it's troublesome for me to beg for monthly tickets every day. I didn't believe it. I tried it myself later and begged for many days in a row. I really felt that it was really troublesome, but I still have to be stubborn and beg again. Ticket. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1105. Lily returned to the starry sky and remembered her unintentional encounter with Li Yangzi during this mission. He said that if he wanted to change his current situation, he had to treat it from the root. Lily kept thinking about what he meant, but when asked again, he didn't want to say any more. But since you can meet him in this mission, you should be able to meet him again in future missions. You can only ask him carefully when you have the chance to meet him next time. Her information appeared in the starry sky. Gender, female, variable. Name, Lily. Age, 21. Intelligence, 90, out of 100. Appearance, 93, out of 100. Physical strength, 90, full score of 100. Force, 92, out of 100 points. Spirit, 20, out of 100 points. Skills, 9 Yang Manual, 9 Yin Manual, Heaven and Earth Gate Tao Te Ching, Southern Gu Technique, Star Body Training Technique. Specialties, Advanced Cooking Skills, Advanced Acting Skills, 5 Elements and Bagua Skills, Proficient, B Control Skills. Charisma, 60, out of 100. Mark, Royal True Dragon Spirit. In the vast ocean, a snow-white shadow was racing across the sea. In the smoky air, it was hard to see the true face of the white shadow. The entire sea surface seemed to be enveloped in heavy fog, and only the sound of waves being splashed could be heard. The shadow jumped up to a height of tens of feet, and after a long time, it fell into the water with a heavy bang sound. The splashing water slowly fell on the sea surface, as if it was a light rain. When the white shadow jumped up and fell again in the mist, it floated on the sea surface and stopped moving, only then was the true form of the shadow revealed. This is a dragon-like creature about 10 feet long. The huge dragon head floated in the water, and the scales on it seemed to be covered with a halo. As the light turned, the dragon head suddenly showed a majestic appearance. After a while, it transformed into something like a woman. It had been unknown how long it had been since Lily entered this mission. This time she entered the ancient world and became a dragon girl in the sea at the top of the world who was not supposed to be born at this time. In ancient times, Heaven and earth had not been separated. Like a giant egg, there sleeps a giant named Pangu. He has been sleeping in the air of chaos for 180,000 years. Suddenly one day he woke up and found that the surroundings were pitch black, so he swung his axe, split all around. Light and clear things slowly fly into the sky, while turbid and heavy things fall to the ground. This is the reason for the origin of this world, which is probably similar to the mythology Lily knows. After Pangu opened the sky, he died because of exhaustion of his strength. After the heaven and earth opened, human beings, birds, animals, flowers, trees, and even a trace of clouds on the horizon gradually appeared, as long as they were irrigated by the true power of chaos. You can cultivate to perfection. The spiritual energy is filling the bath. At this time, there are many monks, and factions are inevitably born. The three realms are not unified, and there are constant disputes between the various factions. Under such circumstances, tens of millions of years later, a young man named Qiyin in the Tang dynasty was born in response to the way of heaven. When his mother was pregnant with him, she saw a green lotus growing in a lotus pond when she went up the mountain to collect medicine. It had a cute and innocent shape and was very spiritual. The lotus has a small lotus pod. There is a lotus seed inside. Extremely fragrant. Qiyin's mother saw that the lotus seeds looked pleasant, and the only lotus heart was really fragrant. She didn't know why, but she was greedy at that time. He reached out and dug out the lotus seed and ate it, but Qiyin's mother was digging out the lotus seed. Qinglian, who was originally very spiritual, seemed to have been cut off by someone, and her spiritual energy was suddenly lost. Qiyin's mother looked a little guilty, so she peeled the lotus seeds, took out the lotus heart, and put the lotus heart and lotus shell into the lotus pod. The green lotus that originally seemed to have lost its vitality gradually regained some vitality after obtaining the lotus heart and lotus seed shell. When Qiyin's mother saw this, she felt relieved and went back down the mountain to her home. After eating this lotus seed, Qiyin's mother found that her pregnancy was much easier than before, and her body was stronger than before. Others originally gave birth in October, but she was pregnant for 2 years, and her family thought she was pregnant. She was an alien. When she was about to be burned to death, a mysterious man rescued her and placed her in the mountains. He would find fairy dew to quench her thirst every month and find her some petals and wild fruits to eat. 2 years later, Qiyin's mother died after giving birth to a son, and named her son Qiyin before she died. Qiyin has lived in the mountains since he was a child. He has a simple and resolute personality. He is kind and smart. When he was a child, the monsters and birds in the mountains would not hurt him. Instead, they would protect him. The man who saved his mother that day was a man of about 16 years old. A beautiful girl named Qinglian brought her up. Qiyin gradually grew up and became a handsome and upright young man. He and Qinglian depended on each other and respected Qinglian very much. By a coincidence, Qiyin rescued a python that was being chased by a mountain leopard, which made the mountain leopard hold a grudge. In the process of retaliating against him, Qinglian was bitten off by the mountain leopard in order to save him. Qiyin thought Qinglian was dead. Feeling sad and angry, Qiyin decided to take revenge on Shanbao. He buried Qinglian's body, worshipped Master Shangshan in Langyuan cave as his teacher, learned the skills of his life, and stepped into the destiny arranged for him by heaven. At first, he just wanted to avenge Qinglian, but gradually, under the leadership of Master Shangshan, he began to change the world. Because there is no leader in the three realms, the monsters and humans are independent. Heaven wants to unify them all and comes up with a co-lord of the three realms to establish order in this world. Qiyin was born different because he took 5 great green lotus seeds when he was in his mother's arms. His mother carried him longer than ordinary people. After he was born, he was respected by all living things and had great strength. Under the guidance of his master, he began to conquer the three realms. It progressed smoothly at first, but he was finally stumped when he encountered the test given by heaven, the devil's descent. The devil is a phantom of the inner demon left by Pangu during the founding of the world. He competes with the way of heaven. Because he is Pangu's inner demon, Pangu's body turns into mountains and rivers, his breath turns into wind and clouds, his voice turns into thunder, and his eyes transformed into the sun and moon, and his inner demons gathered his evil nature. Because this demon is a relic of Pangu, its ability is extraordinary. In order to prevent the victory of heaven, he almost killed Chi-Yin several times. At the critical moment, Chi-Yin narrowly escaped death several times. Seeing that he could not support himself, Tiandao turned into a young man named Destiny to give Chi-Yin guidance. Legend has it that at the end of the world, there is a vast expanse of sea water, which was transformed from a tear of Pangu. Millions of years later, because this tear contained Pangu's spiritual energy and was trapped in one place, protected by the spiritual power of chaos, a creature was born in the sea. A dragon egg, after being nourished by spiritual energy for millions of years, hatched into a dragon girl, which took 100,000 years to grow, and 100,000 years to transform into a human being. Apart from the innate advantages she brings, Dragon Girl does not have much strength. Because Tiandao was suppressed by Pangu, there was no way to control this side of the end of the world. Until one day, a disciple in Langyuan Cave was chased by his enemy and accidentally entered Langyuan Cave. He accidentally bumped into the Dragon Girl and raped her. Obtained the essence of the Dragon Girl for many years, repaired the injuries, and fortunately obtained the power of the ancient world, and broke through the top of the world, and the heaven was finally able to get a glimpse of this pure land that had no way to invade before. The Dragon Girl was raped and had her ancient power left by Pangu taken away. Her bones were destroyed. With resentment in her heart, she accidentally learned of the existence of the way of heaven. She complained to him and longed for revenge, but was stopped by the way of heaven. Although Heavenly Dao has no way to control this end of the mountain, it can block it and trap the Dragon Girl in it, making it impossible for her to get out. The Dragon Girl had a grudge that she could not avenge. She was trapped for many years, and her heart began to twist under the resentment. But because she was conceived from Pangu's tears, and because there is a prehistoric power here that has long since disappeared from the outside world, her existence is like a rare treasure under such an environment. The only way for Chi-Yin to defeat Demon Zhang is to borrow Pangu's power to destroy Pangu's inner demon phantom. Unfortunately, Pangu has been dead for many years, and his body has transformed into the sun, moon, and stars. However, Tiandao remembered such a dragon girl, so he turned into a guide to fate, saying that as long as he enters the top of the world, kills the dragon girl, and obtains her death, the first tear shed from the front eye contains the power of Pangu. Then use her bones to make magic tools, use her scales to make armor, drink her flesh and blood, and use her long hair to braid shoes. Pull out her tendons, then he will be equivalent to possessing the power of Pangu, and he will definitely be able to subdue the demon, and then use the dragon girl's tendons to tie it up, hand it over to heaven, and restore clarity to this world. For the sake of human beings and fairies, Chi-Yin embarked on this path without hesitation. One of his senior brothers in Langyuan Cave, who had already cultivated the Deluo golden body, once entered the top of the world and told him how to enter. The way of heaven arranged for him, specially created many crises for him. And Qinglian, who Qian thought had been bitten to death by a mountain leopard that day, was resurrected under Tiandao's instructions and appeared in front of him lively. Qi-Yin was raised under the care of Qinglian since he was a child. When he saw a beautiful and pure woman, he knew that he had become the cause and effect he is now because of eating her lotus seeds. He fell in love with Qinglian and asked her to confess. Qinglian almost died at the hands of Qian's mother that day, but she survived because her mother was merciful and left her a heart. After turning into a human form, she has been caring for Qian since he grew up. Because Qian has her spiritual power in her body, I have always taken great care of Qi-Yin. As soon as Qian expressed his love for her, Qinglian accepted it. This green lotus was born a long time ago and knows a lot of things. With her help, she led him through 5 levels and killed 6 generals. Finally, he broke through the restrictions left by the way of heaven, entered the top of the world, and killed those who wanted to. The vengeful dragon girl skinned her, twitched her tendons, and defeated the devil. The gods from all walks of life conferred the throne, and Qian became the co-lord of the 3 realms, known as the Great Emperor, and finally fell in love with Qinglian for the rest of his life. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1106. And Lily this time became the poor dragon girl who was raped by the disciples of Lang Yuan cave when she first appeared in the plot. The number of times she appeared, that is, the 2 short sentences in the mouth of Destiny, who was transformed from heaven, finally made her appear in Destiny. Under the arrangement, it became a stepping stone to Qian's success. The dragon girl was very unwilling. It was not easy for her to cultivate into human form, but her foundation was destroyed by outsiders. Otherwise, how could she die in the hands of a kid like Qian with her prehistoric power? Her whole life seemed to be born to inspire and subjugate demons. First she was raped, but she had no way to sue, and she had no way to take revenge. In the end, she was killed, and even her bones, skin and tendons were made into magic weapons. It was really, not willing to give in. She wants to be strong, to firmly control what should belong to her, and not to let others take it away easily and destroy herself. She wants to take revenge on the young man who took away her foundation. She also wants to kill Zheng Shadai, your own inspiration, and change your miserable fate. This time the mission Leng Huiwei seems to be just that: the dragon girl wants revenge, but because Qian is the person chosen by Tiandao, it actually means that the dragon girl wants to fight against Tiandao. When Lily thinks of this, she can't help but have a headache. When she entered the mission, the dragon girl had not yet hatched. The original owner lived alone at the end of this world. It seemed to be separated from the outside world into 2 different worlds. In the original owner's plot, the death was unclear, and the life was unclear. He is also ignorant and does not know the time. Lily wasn't sure what time it was now, nor when Qian Hui was born. She didn't know how long she had slept in the egg. When she woke up, she found that she seemed to be sealed in the egg because she had the body of a dragon. Reason: she was unable to practice physical skills. After accepting the plot, she had no choice but to hit eggshells every day and try her best to recite the Tao Te Ching formulas in the eggshells. Gradually he gained some strength, and after thousands of years, he gained some Taoism and gradually absorbed the eggshell. The invisible seal was broken. From the day she broke out of her shell, Lily absorbed spiritual power and practiced every day. Although the sea was transformed from Pangu's tears, and the prehistoric spiritual energy here is rich, it is logically speaking that it would be of great benefit to her cultivation, but in this world, it is said that human beings are the first spirit among all things. Although the other birds and beasts can be cultivated into spirits, they are limited. The time required is much longer than that of humans. This seems to be a rule that has been set since the beginning of chaos. No one is immune. Lily practiced diligently every day, but her progress was still very slow. Until recently, she had a vague feeling that she was about to turn into a human form, so she practiced more diligently every day. For the dragon girl in the plot, she is trapped in this world abandoned by heaven and earth. She felt like she was in prison when she was alone, but it was not very unbearable for Lily. She had a firm personality and no one disturbed her to practice alone, so she could endure the loneliness. Therefore, for hundreds of years soon it passed with a snap of the fingers in the day-after-day practice. At first, Lily could barely remember some time, but then she gradually gave up on this move and concentrated on practicing. After all, even if she remembered the time and knew when the disciples from Lang Yuan cave would appear, it would still be because of her insufficient magical power. Not when someone else is your opponent. At that time, if others want to do anything to her, they will still hurt her. Although the sea area looks large, in the eyes of a truly powerful monk, it is just a drop in the ocean. The disciples of Lang Yuan Cave were already at the golden immortal level, and their magic power was extremely strong. She definitely wouldn't be able to hide by herself, so it would be better to practice hard so that when trouble comes, these people who had hurt her would no longer be able to hurt her again. It was more than 1,000 years from the time Lily felt that she was about to cultivate into a human form, to the time Lily actually cultivated a human body. This process was extremely long, but fortunately, she finally got through it. A large amount of chaotic spiritual power from all around crazily poured into Lily's body. According to the way of heaven, originally, when the spirit cultivator was a human, it should have suffered 99 and 81 thunder tribulations before it could transform into a human form. If you can't survive it, you will be wiped out again, but because Lily is outside the rules of heaven, she has not experienced the frustration of this level. As the spiritual power entered her body, she felt that her dragon head turned into a human form, the dragon tail turned into legs, and the claws turned into hands. The temperature in her body was so high that it seemed as if she was being burned by the true fire of samadhi, which made Lily my whole body hurts. The originally cold sea water surrounded her, and crisp dragon roars came out of her mouth. As the smooth scales gradually disappeared, the looming body in the water gradually turned into a graceful girl. She's transformed into a human being. Lily opened her mouth. It was no longer the same as before. When she opened her mouth, she screamed. She raised her arms, and her jade-white arms were crystal clear under the water light. The water on her arms dripped onto the sea surface with her movements, making a ding-dong sound. She reached out and picked up a handful of sea water. The feeling of swinging her legs had not been felt for countless years. Now she felt that she had truly transformed into a human being, and Lily's face showed joy. In the past, when she was a dragon, she could only practice the mental methods of the Tao Te Ching at most. Many things could not be practiced due to restrictions, and due to the rules, her practice was very slow. But now that she has endured so many years, once she transforms into a human, she can't practice it. She could practice Xingqian's physical skills that she couldn't practice. This sea area is Pangu's tears, with the aura of the great god. Although the dragon girl was nourished by the power of Pangu, in fact, the power she truly received from the sea area was less than 1/10,000th. Lily felt that after she turned into a human body, because she had lived in dragon form for many years, she was still not suitable for her original appearance. Therefore, she swam in the sea for a while, and after she gradually got used to her body, she started floating in the sea water. I practiced star training. When she was in the dragon form, she practiced the Tao Te Ching. Because she was surrounded by the power of the ancient world, her practice in the dragon form was relatively smooth. But now that she was in human form, Lily felt that she could not compare with what she had before. As the movements of Xingqian's physical training began, a large amount of chaotic spiritual power poured into her body. A trace of Pangu's spiritual power unique to the sea water poured into her body and began to swim around in her body. These powers soon overwhelmed her. Surrounded by the spiritual power that was originally cultivated, he completed the physical training together with the Tao Te Ching. She has made more progress than she had in 100 years of training. Lily stopped her movements. Now that she has the physical skills to practice in conjunction with the Tao Te Ching, if there is a change in the way of heaven in the future, it would be fine if the disciples of Lang Yuan Cave no longer break into the sea area. If he dares to come again, it won't be that easy if he wants to achieve the fruit of ancient power cultivation like in the plot. She frowned and looked at her body still floating in the sea. Although there was no one else in the sea area, Lily still transformed into a set of clothes and put them on before sinking into the seabed. Time flies, Day after day in practice, time flies very fast. Lily spends her time in practice every day, and the power of Pangu originally contained in the sea area has now been absorbed by her. The chaotic spiritual power in the small world has been absorbed into her body due to her years of practice. She has even tried to take most of the world here into her body. As long as she is given a little more time, she can take this small world into her body. When all of it was taken into her body, this small world that originally trapped her could no longer trap her. In the plot, the original owner has been locked at the top of the world, but there is actually no way to get out. Except for the fact that this small world was later broken and blocked by the law of heaven. As long as the dragon girl is strong enough to subdue this drop of tears that originally belonged to Pangu, incorporate it into her body, and absorb all its power, this shackles will be if you don't attack, you will destroy yourself. However, although the dragon girl was born with a special background, she did not know how to practice, and she was restricted by the law, so it took so many years that in the end, she could not even defeat the disciples of Lang Yuan cave. The foundation was damaged. In the end, he was killed by Qi Yin in order to conquer the devil. Because the sea area is independent from the world, there is no distinction between day and night. Tens of thousands of years have passed again, and Lily has been able to refine almost all of the sea area. Suddenly one day she felt a movement in her heart, as if something had broken in. Now the entire sea area is under her control. She could feel even the slightest changes. Now that she felt someone had broken into this small world, Lily knew that the disciple from Lang Yuan cave in the plot was finally under the arrangement of heaven, as set out in the plot. As if determined, he broke into this small world. The time that she had originally forgotten was finally on the right track until now. In the plot, the dragon girl will first be insulted by him, taking away her ancient power and destroying her foundation, and then Qi Yin will appear later, and the dragon girl will officially enter the plot. Like the original owner, Lily moved quickly in the direction of this person. In the plot, the original owner's move was unintentional, but Lily approached him consciously. Obviously, because the other person was a golden immortal, he was also very fast. I felt Lily's strange movement. "What a monster, why don't you show your true colors quickly?" a clear male voice shouted. The young man in white accidentally broke in here because he encountered a powerful enemy and was almost killed in a fight. As soon as he entered the sea area, the young man felt that something was not right. The world had been opened for countless thousands of years, and the spiritual power of chaos was no longer as strong as it was when the world first opened. However, it seemed that there was a paradise hidden here. In addition to abundant strength, there is actually chaotic spiritual power, and a prehistoric power that makes him feel scared and a little excited seems to be hidden in this world. The young man was originally seriously injured, and his foundation was almost destroyed by a powerful enemy. At this time, feeling the prehistoric power, I couldn't help but feel surprised and happy. He shouted sharply when Lily approached, and a compass in his hand burst out with a dazzling luster. This beam of light seemed to illuminate the originally gray sea area at once, making it brighter. In the young man's surprised eyes, the sea water parted from both sides. Lily, wearing a silver-white gauze dress with the same color as the original owner's scales, walked out of the sea water and stood opposite the young man. The original dragon girl lived alone in the sea. Because she was born from Pangu's tears, she has been trapped here since she remembered things until she opened her spiritual wisdom. She knew nothing about the outside world, her temperament was ignorant and naive, and she didn't know. She is full of treasures and will be coveted by others. She is completely defenseless against others. When she sees the young man, she shows her kindness to others, but she does not know that after the young man sees through her extraordinary background at a glance, the young man is seriously injured. The appearance of the dragon girl seemed to be a peerless treasure that had no defense against it, but was defiled by this young man. At this moment, the young man's eyes were full of greed and ecstasy. The dragon girl couldn't understand the meaning of this look, but Lily could see it at a glance. She sneered twice in her heart, and saw the compass in the young man's hand raised, and muttered two sentences. A beam of light shone towards her. This is one of the 3 7th-grade magical instruments in Lang Yuan Cave. It is called the Life and Death Disc, which means that as long as this disc is in your hand, you can control life and death. Controlling life, in a certain respect, is similar to the list of gods used by Qian later. As long as Qian recognizes the owner of the list of gods obtained by fate, Qian will use his spiritual power to write whose name is on the list. Anyone can become a god. It was with this rare treasure that Qian secured his position as the lord of the 3 realms. This life and death disc is similar. As long as the owner injects spiritual power, it is up to him to decide which direction the disc pointer points, whether the other party lives or dies. If the opponent's strength is higher than the owner of the life and death chart, this chart will definitely not lead to life or death. As long as the spiritual power is enough, it can also be immobilized. If only for this reason, although the life and death disc is precious, it is not comparable to the list of gods. However, this disc can also be used for calculation. Holding this disc, you can calculate a person's origin. No matter whether the opponent is a monster or a human being, in front of this life and death chart, nothing can be hidden. What weaknesses, origins, and strengths of the opponent are clearly visible in front of the life and death chart. It is precisely because of this that this plate is known as one of the 3 7th-grade artifacts among the various artifacts in Lang Yuan Cave. At this time, the young man wanted to immobilize Lily and figure out its origin. Lily watched his actions. Obviously, just like in the plot. The young man soon learned of his birth, and should also understand what kind of existence this world is. When the light of the life and death disc enveloped her, an invisible pressure enveloped Lily. Lily was unfazed. But when the original dragon girl was illuminated by the light of life and death, her cultivation was insufficient. She was severely damaged under the light. If it weren't for her special origin, she would have almost revealed her true form. Is it actually a dragon girl, or was it born from the tears of Emperor Pangu? Sure enough, the young man quickly figured out Lily's origin, and there was a bit of greed in his eyes, but because Lily's strength was hazy in the life and death chart, as if he was trapped in the mist, he couldn't see clearly. Such a situation had never happened before. However, even when facing Master Shangshan, the life and death chart can indicate the strength of Delugo Jinxian. However, when the young man calculated Lily, he could not detect her true strength at all. But soon the young man put this doubt behind his mind and grinned. It has only been 100,000 years from breaking out of the shell to now. How capable can a beast be? It's just that there is Pangu in his body, the legacy of a great god. If I get this legacy, I can rebuild the foundation. I originally thought that I would be doomed if the foundation was shattered by my old enemy, but now it is a blessing in disguise. If I can collect Pangu's legacy from this dragon girl, strength, by then not only will the foundation be repaired, but maybe his strength will be even better. Master Shangshan Genren once obtained the guidance of heaven through the power of the life and death tray. He knew that in a few hundred years the master of the list of gods would appear. At that time, he could rely on his own strength to become a true god and achieve great results. Thinking of this, the young man's eyes shone even brighter. It doesn't matter if you can't see the strength clearly. Maybe it should be because the beast contains ancient power, so the compass can't show it, not to mention a little dragon that has been practicing for less than 100,000 years. It is estimated that it can only be transformed into a human form. Even a dragon that is millions of years old may not be his opponent if it fights at its peak. Although he was seriously injured now, he had the life and death treasure of Lang Yuan Cave in his hand. It was not difficult to subdue this little dragon. Thinking of this, the young man became greedy. In his opinion, Lily was just a treasure. Those who were destined to know it, even if she has transformed into a human form, in the eyes of this young man, she is just a thing, and it will be destroyed if it is destroyed. He didn't notice the cold look in Lily's eyes when he said this, nor did he realize that the light of life and death surrounding Lily didn't really freeze her. The young man just thought that he was gone this time. Luck, he happily poured his spiritual power into the magic weapon. The light of the life and death disc became more and more dazzling, and he drank. Go. I originally thought that this light was enough to restrain Lily. The young man was about to fly forward to gain the power of the dragon girl. He was yang, and the dragon girl was yin. Yin and yang were harmonious, and everything would be done well when the time came. The smile on the corner of the young man's mouth was still there. When the light shone on Lily, Lily reached up and drew a circle. A water mirror appeared in her hand and became bigger and bigger, because the water was Pangu's tears formed. Although this life and death disc is the most precious treasure of Lang Yuan Cave, it cannot be compared with the power of the ancient times. Once it is blocked, the light will no longer be refracted. The young man originally thought that he would hit the target with his first shot, but he did not expect that Lily would react so quickly. When he came to his senses and realized something was wrong, he wanted to retreat. It's too late. After the sea was refined by Lily, in a certain way, it was like a part of Lily's body, controlled by her. Do whatever you want. She tied the sea water into a water dragon and pointed it at the young man. When the young man saw the huge waves, he was so frightened that he flew away to hide. But it was still a step too late. The water dragon entangled it. It had been many years since Lily turned into a human form, and her strength was no longer comparable to that of the dragon girl in the plot. At this moment, the young man's intention was unscrupulous, but he was restrained by others. In panic, he tried to struggle. How can I struggle to escape? The ancient power that he originally coveted was like an invisible shackle that locked it tightly, not to mention that his strength was greatly reduced now that his foundation was destroyed. Even when he was strong, the sea water trapped him, and he seemed to be an enemy of Pangu, the god who created the world. Even if the sea water was just one of Pangu's tears, how could he be his opponent? With a dong sound, the young man was restrained and could not control the compass in his hand. Falling into the sea, without the blessing of the master's spiritual power, the light on the life and death disc was a little dim. The compass that was originally the size of the forehead was spinning and turned into a palm-sized piece of pure white jade disc, floating on the sea. He stopped moving. Lily trapped the young man and then walked towards the compass. She was walking on flat ground on the sea. When the young man saw her reaching out to pick up the compass, he felt anxious. You evildoer! Let me go quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude to you. This compass has an extraordinary origin and is one of the sacred objects. If it is lost, you can imagine what will happen to you when you return to the master. Those who respect punishment. The young man failed to seize the treasure, and now his treasure has to be picked up by others. I couldn't help but feel a little panicked. He didn't expect that a dragon girl who was born less than 100,000 years ago would be able to lock him. It seemed to be related to the cause of Pangu's tears, but it was a pity that the dragon girl was not human after all. If this strength could with his own income, 100 years later, he will definitely be among the Deluo Golden Immortals. Now that you can't protect yourself, how can you be rude to me? Lily did not listen to the young man's threat and picked up the compass. She felt that there was a mark of Lang Yuan Cave on the compass. This is a good thing. In a sentence in layman's terms, the superiors can know the secrets of heaven, and the inferiors can know the geography of all things. This is like a mobile plug-in. After the young man reaches Deluo Jinxian, he can rely on this disc to obey the arrangement of heaven and follow Qian, but for Qian's the road to becoming a god has exerted a lot of power. Such a good thing was brought to him on his own initiative at this time. Without thinking, Lily used her spiritual power to erase the mark made by Lang Yuan Cave on the compass. The life and death tray was originally a magic weapon for young people. It had been nurtured by him for many years and was connected to his heart. This time his spiritual power was wiped out. To the young man, it was like having his heart and liver ripped out. It was heartbreaking. He had no idea at all. Thinking of how a dragon girl like Lily, who was obviously born not long ago, could have such magical power to snatch away the most precious treasure, the young man was agitated and spat out a large mouthful of blood with a wow sound. The blood had not yet fallen into the sea. Lily already frowned in disgust. "Don't pollute my land," she said coldly, wrapped the blood and the young man's body with her spiritual power, and gathered the small world. A gap appeared out of thin air, and Lily threw it out. She did not take the young man's life. Although the young man took away the dragon girl's foundation in the plot, because the young man did not kill the dragon girl at that time, in the future, as long as heaven will still support Chi-Yin on the road to becoming a god, one day she will still be able to do it. Those who meet this young man will settle the cause and effect together at that time. In the plot, the young man took away her foundation. Now the young man's foundation has been shattered, and the life and death plate, one of the three treasures of Lang Yuan cave, has been robbed by her. It can be regarded as tit for tat, and a rift has been formed. Without his own basic support, and no longer getting the ancient power from himself, if this young man wants to become a Deluo Golden Immortal as easily as in the plot, and be ranked in the immortal class after the Battle of the Gods, it will be as easy as that. Looking at the direction in which the young man disappeared, Lily curled her lips before sinking back into the seabed. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1107. Since the appearance of the young man, Lily has determined the current plot development time. 300 years have passed in a flash. During these 300 years, Lily has been practicing every day. This area of the sea has been completely refined by her, and the outside world has shown also progressed to the time when Chi-Yin was born. Lily was not prepared to stay in the sea area and wait for Chi-Yin to appear. After knowing that his hidden opponent this time was Tiandeo, although it was an unforgivable crime for Chi-Yin to kill the dragon girl that day, he was not the one he really wanted to deal with. Lily waited until she had finished refining Pango's tears, and then she resurfaced on the sea. She spread her palms, and a drop of water rolled in her palm, like a shining pearl, flowing with the water. As the bead rotates, sea water begins to gradually spread into the water bead. The water bead gets bigger and bigger, and the surrounding sea area quickly deflates at a speed visible to the naked eye, until the water bead turns into a huge water ball with dust floating inside. Wu Wu's chaotic spiritual power was absorbed, and the surrounding spiritual power was sucked clean. The bead became smaller and smaller, and finally disappeared between Lily's palms, and gradually disappeared without a trace. The spiritual power and water at the top of the world were completely absorbed. Because Lily was the master of this void, she easily tore the void apart and exited the space in a flash. In the plot, the dragon girl was trapped in this place until her death, as if she was doomed to a tragic fate from the day she was born, waiting for Chi-Yin to come and kill her. Now that she was out of space, Lily frowned subconsciously. Wrinkled. As the world was split apart for a long time, compared with the rich chaotic spiritual power in the void, the spiritual power in the outside world was obviously much thinner than the world Lily stayed in before, but Lily quickly adapted to this feeling. In order to unify the three realms, to establish an inherent order in this world, Tiandeo had already made a lot of preparations before Chi-Yin was born. From a certain perspective, Lang Yuan Cave was world famous at this time. It is also one of the starting stones for enlightenment under the arrangement of fate. The ancestor of Lang Yuan Cave, Shangshan Jinren, was originally a dewdrop on an 8th level lotus platform. He listened to the lectures of Meng and Zhejiang and cultivated spirituality by chance. Later, because of his disciples' meritorious service in introducing and conferring gods, he occupied the position of saint ancestor. It can be said that in the arrangement of Heavenly Dao, Lang Yuan Cave is a sect that obeys Heavenly Dao and is driven by Heavenly Dao. Since what Lily wants to do is to be an enemy of heaven, she will inevitably have to deal with the disciples of Lang Yuan Cave in the future. Lang Yuan Cave is crowded and powerful, and most of her disciples have reached the level of golden immortals. The strength of Master Shangshan has even reached the level of Deluo Jingxian, but he has not yet become a saint. Since the appearance of Qi Yin was not introduced in detail in the plot, Lily only knew it roughly at first, but fortunately, she captured the life and death disc, one of the 3 treasures of Lang Yuan Cave, hundreds of years ago, so she used it when she went to the sea. The power of the life and death disc has been calculated, and it is known that Qi Yin was born at this time, and the conferred God War will not begin until 20 years later. For enlightenment. Lily did not think about eradicating him now. Qi Yin was the person chosen by heaven who was destined to control the most precious treasure of the gods list. If he died now, the connection between the gods list that he could control and him would naturally be severed. Such an accident is generally unlikely to happen under Tiandao's arrangement, but nothing is absolute. Lily's current strength has already exceeded the setting of the prehistoric world. If she wants to kill Qian, Tiandao will rescue her. Qian, it's not guaranteed that you will survive. But there is only one thing, there are so many people and creatures in the world. One Qian died. There will always be another inspiration, and if that happens, it will be troublesome. Lily doesn't know who God will choose again, so she might as well wait and see. He guarded Qi Yin until he grew up until the conferring God War 20 years later. No matter how bad the way of heaven is, good things will be fine. Thinking of this, Lily curled her lips, and in a flash, the figure quickly disappeared from where it was. Not long after she left, a young man in Xingyi, about 20 years old, appeared at the place where Lily disappeared. He said confusedly, "You were clearly here, why are you missing?" Lily didn't know that someone had rushed over after she left. She found a mountain range that was not occupied by demon spirits and had weak spiritual power. She dug a cave in the mountain and then got in. Lily cultivated in this cave and stayed there for 10 years. Qi Yin had already been born at this time. Calculating the time, it was almost time for heaven to arrange for him to enter the world of immortality and worship under the Lang Yuan cave. Only then did he left the place where he lived and rushed towards the temporary residence of Qi Yin and Xing Lian. Deep in the mountains, young Qi Yin is running flexibly in the mountains with a basket on his back. When his mother was pregnant, because her mother had taken 5-grade green lotus, he had a kind of feeling for flowers, plants, trees, and other creatures. Getting close, when Lily rushed to the place where Qi Yin had stayed when he was a child, he recognized Qi Yin at a glance, who killed the original owner 10 years later. If he had followed heaven's arrangement, he would have encountered a giant python that was being chased by a mountain leopard spirit and was about to be gutted by a mountain leopard. Qi Yin felt pity in his heart and picked up the medicine. The stone was thrown at the mountain leopard, thus saving the python's life. Lily refused to let heaven's arrangement go through, so she flicked her fingers, and a drop of water flew out from her fingertips. There was a loud bang in the sky, and it started to rain pattering. Dragon was originally able to drive away wind and clouds, and was good at rain and dew. Lily also studied the Tao Te Ching. After becoming strong, she did not need to recite incantations. With only a slight shift of the spiritual power in her body, the drop of water that was popped out by her turned into water vapor. It started to rain heavily. Weird, the rain fell quickly and urgently. There was no warning before, but now it was cold. The rain made a rustling sound in the woods. The leaves were shaken by the strong wind and the rain. Beads flew everywhere. Qi Yin, who originally had a smile on his face, suddenly changed his expression. He shrank up and hid under a huge leaf. The tree felt the green lotus aura on his body and thoughtfully blocked all the branches and leaves. The top of his head. The sky was clear just now, and the rain started right away. The heavy rain blocked his path. A few months ago, he had already spotted a century-old red plant growing on the top of the cliff in front of him. There was nothing wrong with that century-old red plant. It has special effects, but the flowers bloom only once in 100 years. They are bright red and very beautiful. He had seen them earlier, but because the buds had not fully bloomed, Qian did not pick it. He saw that the flowers were about to bloom in the past 2 days, so he decided to pick it today and take it back to give to Aunt Qinglian. I didn't expect it to rain so heavily at this time. If the flowers were beaten by the rain, I'm afraid they will all fall apart. It took such a long time for the centenary red to bloom. It would be a pity if it was wiped out by wind and rain. I thought of this. Qian showed hesitation on his face, but decided to take the other shortcut and pick the flowers before talking. There is another way to the cliff, which is a little closer, but the road is steep and dangerous. If it doesn't rain today, Qian will definitely not go there, but now he thinks that the flowers may be hit by the raindrops. Fall. I have guarded this kiss for a long time before it blossomed. It would be a pity if it disappeared like this. He turned around and walked towards the other side. As soon as he left, the downpour gradually stopped, then stopped for a while. Qian raised his head and looked at the sky. It's really strange. The rain was so heavy before, and it stopped immediately. The rain came quickly. He went very quickly, but he was just pretending to be something and didn't think too much about it. He tightened the straps of the backpack on his back and quickened his pace towards the edge of the cliff. As soon as he left, Lily felt that Qian was getting further and further away, so she collected the rainwater. The rainwater that she had spilled before turned into water droplets and was collected into her palm. Lily saw that not far away he was originally destined to be saved by Qian, but later followed him to repay the favor. At this time, he had died under the sharp claws of the mountain leopard spirit. When the smell of blood spread, Lily disappeared in a flash. Although the killing of the python was only a slight change, for Tiandeo, it might have already felt like there was some trouble at this time. Because the mountain leopard spirit was not originally responsible for this cause, and it will not be this result in the future. The python was supposed to repay Qian's favor, but now that the python is dead, the reason why Qian embarked on the road to becoming a god has changed. Such a trouble may be easily solved by Tiandeo, but if there are more of the same troubles, it will not be so easy for Tiandeo to put everything back on track. Just like a sophisticated computer, the computer can run well under normal circumstances, but if a program software error occurs, the entire system may collapse. Lily is not going to make many big moves at the beginning, she just needs to keep making some changes. In the early stage, this will not easily attract Tiandeo's attention, but it will also be convenient to disrupt his steps. In the plot, because Qian was rescuing the python, he naturally failed to pick flowers to send the green lotus, but this time it was naturally different. Qian successfully reached the edge of the cliff and saw the eternal red flower. He climbed up tremblingly, and when he saw Wanyanhong, a look of joy appeared on his face. Before he stretched out his hand and touched the root, a blood-red bee that originally stayed on Wanyanhong pricked it with a needle behind its tail. Hit him. The accident happened so quickly. The bee was extremely small, less than half the size of a tail nail. It was as big as a bean, and its body was red. It was impossible to see it when it was parked in the stamens. When Qian found out something was wrong, he had to stop it. By the time I got my hands on it, it was already too late. He didn't know what kind of bee it was. When the sting pierced the back of Qian's hand, he felt a sharp pain and subconsciously retracted his hand. He was holding onto the cliff with one hand and picking flowers with the other. He couldn't stop thinking after the sting, and screamed in surprise. He was so frightened that he stretched out his hand to grab something to steady himself, but he only managed to grab the eternal red flower. Fell towards the cliff. Lily saw the scene in mid-air and followed her down without thinking. Chi-Yin cannot die. He is the destined person chosen by heaven. If he dies so easily, heaven will choose another one in 10 years. The man who unified the three realms, Lily saw Qian falling all the way down, hitting the rocks extending from the stone wall several times. When he was already dying, seeing that he was about to die, Lily stretched out her hand to save him before he hit the ground. Put him flat on the ground. As soon as he dropped it, the 10,000-year red flower he was holding in his hand also fell beside him. A red bee rolled out from the 10,000-year red flower. It flapped its wings twice, its breath was weak, but it was not dead yet. Lily glanced at it and waved her hand, and the blood bee flew towards her palm involuntarily. She put the blood bee into her sleeve and then left this place. By the time Qinglian discovered Qian, his condition was already very bad. Although Qian had eaten Qinglian's lotus seeds when he was in his mother's belly, his body was much stronger than ordinary people, but he was hit first. He was poisoned by the blood bee, and then fell off the cliff. If Lily hadn't rescued him, he might have died by now. Seeing that he was dying, Qinglian already loved him, so she decided to take out her lotus heart and give it to him. Qinglian was originally a 5th grade lotus. Her cultivation level is extremely high, but because her mother took lotus seeds, her cultivation level was greatly reduced. If not for her mother's failure to take away her lotus heart, she might have died a long time ago. If she wanted to give Qi-Yin the lotus heart at this time, she would be using herself as a medicine to drive away the blood bee poison from Qi-Yin's body. This way, Qinglian loses her heart and will undoubtedly die. But she still took out the lotus heart without hesitation and put it into Qi-Yin's mouth. When Qi-Yin woke up and saw the withered green lotus beside him, he couldn't help but burst into tears. As a result, it was back to what it was like in the plot at this time. Qinglian died to save Qian. When he dug a hole and buried the lotus that had turned into a withered yellow plant into the soil, the way of heaven turned into a young man named Destiny. Appeared in front of Qi-Yin. He gave Qian some advice. If Qian goes to Langyuan cave and worships the good master as his teacher, when the time is right, Qinglian might be able to accumulate merit and be resurrected to reunite with him. With such a beautiful expectation, Qi-Yin embarked on the same journey to find Langyuan cave as in the original plot. At this time, Lily returned to her temporary cave after taking action. When she was about to practice, something moved in her sleeves. Only then did she think of the blood bee she accidentally brought back today. When Lily saved the blood bee, she just thought of her own skills in controlling the bees. After she came back, she forgot about it. At this time, she thought of saving the blood bee. As soon as it was thrown, the bee rolled twice in mid-air, but finally failed to stabilize its body and fell heavily to the ground. Great Immortal, help me! A line of spiritual consciousness was transmitted into Lily's spiritual sea. She looked towards the blood bee. He squatted in front of it and spread his hands towards the blood bee. The blood bee struggled to swing its wings and tried to fly, but in the end it fell back to the ground feebly. Lily sighed. He made a magic spell in his hand and sent a stream of spiritual power into the blood bee's body. The blood bee paused, refreshed, then flew up unsteadily, and landed obediently in the palm of Lily's hand. The little demon is a blood bee next to the Black Wind Pond in Woolly Ridge. It has been practiced for thousands of years, but it is difficult to transform into a human form due to innate deficiencies. This blood bee is also unlucky. It has good demon power, but is limited by its innate nature and cannot be transformed into a human form in 1,000 years. It was in human form. Decades ago, it found a 10,000 years red plant here. It was overjoyed and immediately settled on the flower. It originally wanted to collect the spirit energy of 10,000 years red while the flowers were in full bloom. It transformed into a human form in one fell swoop. It was almost scary to see it. Mature, but suddenly a Chenyagin emerged. Although the 10,000-year-old red flower is not as beneficial to humans as other elixirs, it takes thousands of years to bloom and is full of aura. Bees are especially good at collecting nectar. If the nectar of the 10,000-year-old red flower is harvested, the blood will the bee borrowed the 10,000 years of red aura and might be able to transform into a human form in one fell swoop as his cultivation greatly increased. Unexpectedly, Qiyin suddenly appeared and saw that the flowers were about to bloom, but someone came to take the meat from his lips. The fat that almost reaches his mouth is related to his good luck in the future. The blood bee was anxious and pricked him with a needle. This needle was connected to its internal organs. When Qiyin shook it off in pain, the blood bee's internal organs were pulled out. The reason why it could live for such a long time was all because of its thousands of years of cultivation. Thinking that he had been cultivating for thousands of years, but now died at the hands of a child with a yellow mouth, Blood Bee felt resentful in his heart. He had been hiding in the flowers well and had been guarding 10,000 years of red for decades, but something unexpected happened from the sky. If he died like this, it would be the end of his body and soul. How could the Blood Bee be willing to do so? When it was rescued by Lily, thanks to Lily's spiritual energy, it could barely breathe now. Although there is a fate between life and death, the little demon really can't swallow this breath. I beg the great immortal to lend a helping hand to save the little demon's life. I am willing to be driven by the great immortal. The blood bees crawled a few times in the heart of the lily palm, and the originally red the luster of the body dimmed at this time, and the voice coming from the spiritual consciousness became a little dull. Lily thought for a while, this blood bee should not have such a catastrophe in its destiny, and it has something to do with herself. If it weren't for she wanted to change Qiyin's path to becoming a god, interrupted his direction, and caused him to disturb the good things of the blood bee. It is impossible to say that the blood bee was hidden in the eternal red. In the plot, it waited until the flowers were in full bloom and plucked them. The spiritual energy has already taken the form of a human. Because of my mission, I caused it to end up like this, so I should save it. Although Lily was not a very warm-hearted person, she was not that ruthless either, so she said, I will give you a trace of chaotic spiritual power. If you can survive, it is your good fortune. If you cannot survive, I can only blame your fate. Chaos spiritual power is the extremely pure spiritual power that was wrapped in the heaven and earth when the world was not yet opened. Even a creature like Huashi can develop spirituality and wisdom if it is nourished by a trace of spiritual energy. The blood bee originally came to find it. Lily tried to save her life, but she instinctively spoke out at the last moment when she was unwilling to die like this. She didn't expect to receive such a blessing, and she was immediately shocked. This chaotic spiritual power is much stronger than Wanyanhong anyway. To compensate for it, if this blood bee can seize the opportunity well, maybe it can go its own way, which can be regarded as compensation for it. Lily didn't care what she was thinking in her heart. The chaotic spiritual power had already dispersed when the heaven and earth were split. Over the years, the spiritual energy had already been thinned, but for Lily, this thing was as much as you want. The dragon girl in the original plot was trapped in a world, like a baby guarding a treasure. At this time, she released a trace of spiritual power and merged into the blood wasp body. The originally sluggish blood bee quickly began to recover after being nourished by the spiritual energy. The originally broad bean-sized body began to expand rapidly when the spiritual energy was absorbed into its body. The originally dim red color on its body reappeared as blood red. The color of the wings is a bit brighter than before, but the appearance has changed somewhat. After the wound under the abdomen healed, the tail needle did not grow back. Instead, a needle about an inch or so grew out of the lip. The mouth is as thin as a needle. Thank you to the great immortal for your kindness. The little demon is willing to become a slave under the great immortal. After the blood bee recovered from its injury, it did not fly again. Instead, it folded its wings and crawled respectfully into Lily's hand. Lily shook her head. I being kind to you is just the result, and this cause was created by me. I don't need your repayment, so please leave. The blood bee was a little reluctant to leave at first, but seeing that Lily had no intention of taking it as a slave, it waved its wings and left gratefully. 5 years later, a gloomy canyon appeared inexplicably on the mainland. I don't know when it appeared. Until one day, a disciple of Hongliangshan's sect entered it, but after his soul was wiped out, it attracted the attention of the people of Hongliangshan. The disciples who went there were already at the golden immortal level and were only one step away from reaching the great Lugo immortal level. However, such a person did not come out alive after accidentally entering the canyon. Hongliang Mountain and Langyuan Cave have been fighting for many years, and such a disciple with advanced cultivation disappeared inexplicably. At first, Taoist Wuji in Hongliang Mountain thought it was the work of Langyuan Cave. He originally wanted to go to Master Shangshan to get this justice back, but he didn't expect it. During the fight with Master Shangshan, he was coaxed into the canyon by Master Shangshan. Although he finally came out, his soul was infected by demonic energy. The most important thing is that the demonic energy contained the aura of Pangu. As soon as this news came out, the entire Hongmeng continent was shocked. Everyone knew that Pangu had disappeared when the sky opened and the earth split. At this time, such a monster suddenly appeared on the mainland. Not to mention Pangu's aura, it was so powerful that even Taoist Wuji in Hongliang Mountain was caught. At the beginning, Master Shangshan deceived Taoist Wuji into entering this canyon. He did not intend to kill him, but because the origin of this canyon was unknown. No one who entered before survived. Not only the people in Hongliang Cave died. Inside, even the disciples in Langyuan Cave had disappeared into it. These people who went there not only died inside, but also died in a way that their souls were completely destroyed. Even 3 souls and 7 souls could not escape. He also wanted to investigate what was going on in the canyon, but because Zhenshan Genren had a relatively calm temperament, he could hold his anger and knew that Taoist Wuji had a violent temper. When he waited for him to knock on the door, he led him into the canyon. Originally, Shangshan Genren felt that Taoist Wuji was really troublesome and wanted to get rid of him and teach him a lesson. Secondly, he also thought that Taoist Wuji had great magical power. He was a jade spirit in the prehistoric period and was full of spirituality. After hundreds of thousands of years of practice, the magic power reaches the sky. Although the spirits will be governed by rules in terms of practice, because jade is a spiritual thing, it is fine if it does not give birth to spiritual wisdom. If it does, it will not be any worse than ordinary people. Master Shangshan originally thought that even if Taoist Wuji entered this canyon, he would suffer some losses, but he would not be injured. Unexpectedly, after Taoist Wuji entered, although he barely escaped, he was attacked by demonic energy. If it weren't for his advanced cultivation, he might have already shown his true form. To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 1108. Jade originally has a restraining effect on evil spirits and evil spirits, especially for those with a cultivation level like Taoist Wuji, it is 100 times more effective. But at this time, I don't know what kind of evil energy it is, and even Taoist Wuji has been hit by it. The Hongmeng continent suddenly exploded. When Lily heard the news after leaving the cave, she was almost certain that what was hidden in the canyon was Pangu's inner demon, the phantom demon. When they discovered this canyon, people from the Hongmeng continent tried to seal the canyon, but they were unsuccessful. The evil energy was getting bigger and bigger. If it was not curbed, the entire Hongmeng continent might be affected by this wave in time. Defiled by demonic energy. For this reason, the major sects sent countless disciples to every corner of the continent to search for treasures of heaven and earth, with the intention of blocking this canyon. It has only been a few years since the real conferred God War. Lily's current cultivation level is extremely high, and she is not going to be trapped in the cave anymore. She is going to Langyuan cave to see that Qian is now worshipping under the disciple of Master Shang Shan. How far have you learned? She did not fly in the sky. Instead, she transformed into an ordinary girl, walking on the winding mountain road. On the way to Langyuan mountain, the Wuling mountains were the only way to go. Lily could hear the noise in the distance. The voice came over, the people in Langyuan cave bully others too much. The best has harmed my master. Now his disciples are bullying others in this way. It is really disgusting. My master has always been fair-minded. Now that Wuji has been eroded by demonic energy, I can only blame him for his weak Taoist heart. Besides, if he hadn't taken the initiative to make trouble with his master that day, he wouldn't have ended up with his body and soul destroyed. He deserved it? Yes, a young girl snorted coldly, and then said, "You Hongliangshan are all a bunch of rabble. This yin yang and hedging are clearly obtained by senior brother Qian, but you are shameless and want to rob them. You are just like Taoist Wuji. They are all unreasonable people who print out of the mold." The girl finished speaking. Obviously, the people in Hongliangshan were angered, and a group of people spoke angrily. Nonsense. Those who are capable of treasures know that if the yin and yang and the combined mirror are refined, they can reflect the past and present life of the person in the mirror. It is one of the most powerful weapons to deal with the monsters in the canyon. We obviously got this thing first, but you people in Langyuan cave didn't. Relying on the strength of the crowd, we robbed him and left. If we hand him over now, that's all. If we don't hand him over, none of you will want to leave today. Why do you say so much? As long as you see the true seal under your hands, the treasure will be held by those who are capable of it. If you win, it will be yours. If you can't win, leave quickly and don't act wild here. After the young man finished speaking, hearing a shout from the other side, it was obvious that someone could not bear it anymore and took action. When Lily heard this, her heart moved, her spiritual energy surged, and her body swayed as lightly as a willow leaf. It wasn't until she stood in mid-air that she saw that the disciples from Langyuan cave below were already fighting with the people from Hongliang mountain. The young man Qian in Langyuan cave is the most eye-catching. He is wearing a white robe, and what he holds in his hand is not the list of gods, one of the 3 treasures of Langyuan cave, which he later obtained, but a pair of silver scissors with bright stirrups, which are extremely sharp. Look. One has a high-cornered hat on his head. The Taoist nun wearing a blue robe carried dust and hit the people in Langyuan cave. I don't know what the floating dust was made of. When it touched the disciples of Langyuan cave, their skin and flesh would be torn apart when it touched them, and they screamed for a while. This Taoist nun is extremely ferocious, and she shakes the dust in her hands very loudly. Seeing that 7 or 8 disciples of Langyuan cave were injured in succession, a young man under the gate of Langyuan cave finally couldn't bear it anymore. "Don't be so arrogant, you evildoer." While the young man was shouting, a handful of silver sand was thrown out by him, and the Taoist nun without noticing, he was sprayed all over his head and face, and he screamed suddenly. The sand was glittering with golden light and seemed unremarkable at first sight, but it formed a large and dense net, which tightened tighter and tighter, trapping the Taoist nun in it. It could not be tightened for a moment. The Taoist nun screamed and fell 3 times. The 7 souls immediately left the body and went to the underworld to be reincarnated. Originally it was just to seize the treasure, but now a life suddenly occurred. When the people of Hongliang mountain saw this scene, they were furious. "Langyuan cave is too deceiving." As he spoke, the big man suddenly tore off his clothes, revealing his white skin. Looking at the belly, there are 7 bloody mouths on the big man's belly. At this time, the white teeth are exposed. As the big man gets angry, these lips and teeth bite with a gurgle sound, and the shape is hideous and terrifying. The big man put his hands on his hips and straightened his belly, and bursts of piercing screams came from his lips. The sound of the teeth clashing became closer and closer. The next moment, these big mouths opened together, and each of them spit out a small ball of fire. The fireball headed towards Lang Yuan cave. The fire was burning under the door. The two disciples under the Lang Yuan cave gate were not paying attention for a moment. As soon as the fire touched their bodies, they burned loudly. The two disciples screamed and rolled on the ground. A few blinked. Time turned into ashes, and the souls all went to the underworld. The people of Lang Yuan cave were so willing to suffer this loss, but the big man turned around with his belly stretched out, and the mouths on his belly were filled with fire. The disciples under the Lang Yuan cave gate hurriedly dodged, and Qi Yin, who was being protected in the crowd, suddenly snorted coldly. He made a sound, put the silver scissors in his hand into his palm, and suddenly raised his hand, and a small round ball appeared in his palm. He looked at the big man's belly and shouted, "Go!" The small ball spun bigger and bigger in the air, and rushed towards the big man with thunderous momentum. Seeing this scene, the big man had no time to dodge, and was hit with a bang sound. The ball didn't look big, but it hit him right in the air. When the big man was in the abdomen, he beat him until his intestines were pierced, and his belly burst open. The red and green water inside melted all over the ground. The fireballs that had just been sprayed everywhere naturally went out as soon as the big man was beaten to death. The belly of a spider the size of a wash basin was broken into pieces on the ground. It was obviously the spider that had been transformed by the big man just now. Although the two sides had fought fiercely before, they still had some room to spare. Although both sides had lost their disciples, they both knew their measure and did not beat the person until his original shape was revealed, and then both his body and soul would be destroyed. If the beating only kills the man, but leaves his soul to be reincarnated, there is still a glimmer of hope. Qi Yu can use this attack to make the big man reveal his true form. Naturally, even his soul cannot be reincarnated at this moment. This Liangzi will immediately. The knot is getting bigger. Seeing such a scene, when the people in Lang Yuan cave were a little at a loss, suddenly someone in Hongliang mountain shouted sadly, "I'll fight with you." As soon as he finished speaking, a buzzing sound suddenly sounded. Everyone was stunned for a moment. When they came back to their senses and were about to take a look, they heard a ferocious voice, "The disciples of Lang Yuan cave are so grand. It's so majestic, it really opened Pandayo's eyes today." A bug about the size of a fist, covered in blood, no one knew what kind of bug it was, flew towards this side quickly, and before a group of people could react, the bug stopping on a disciple of Lang Yuan cave, the sharp and thin mouth as long as the length of his body pierced into the disciple's Tianling cap. The disciple struggled desperately and screamed, but in one breath, he was sucked out. It flapped its wings and flew towards another disciple. Everything happened between lightning and flint. By the time the Lang Yuan cave disciples came to their senses, 2 disciples had already been killed by this demonic insect. Where is the monster? The disciples of Lang Yuan cave each used their magic weapons and attacked the insect one after another. However, the insect was very flexible. It swung from side to side and moved extremely fast. It spotted Qi Yin and wanted to fly towards him. At that moment, Lily hesitated for a moment in mid-air. She recognized that this insect was the blood bee who had been given a trace of chaos spiritual power by her 5 years ago. She hadn't seen him for several years. She didn't expect that the original blood bee was not only not dead, but actually it figured out another way to live. Although it didn't mean it, it figured out a way to absorb spiritual power to maintain its own life. This can be regarded as its creation. At this time, the blood bee looked like it wanted to seek revenge from Qi Yin. It was obviously because it resented Qi Yin for harming it. However, Qi Yin was the person chosen by heaven, and Lily was not prepared to let him die at this time. She was hesitating. When he was about to take action, a thunderous voice rang out. Nonsense, don't hurt anyone. As soon as the voice sounded, the blood bee's figure that was flying steadily swayed, and saw that it was not far from Kian, but a figure from the horizon came like a shooting star, and it sneered. He yelled, "You are lucky." After saying that, he turned around and ran away without hesitation. When Master Shangshan arrived, the little thing blood bee made a quick decision and had already disappeared without a trace. Lily concealed her aura and cultivated herself and hid in the dark. This place was not far from Lang Yuan cave. Just now, because of the sudden death of her disciple, Master Shangshan sensed it and hurried over. Unexpectedly, he arrived too late. The blood bees have already sucked in several disciples and escaped. There are still disciples from Hongliang Mountain who need to be dealt with here. Even if he pursues them again, he cannot leave this place behind. Even if Master Shangshan has reached the cultivation level of Deluo Jingxian, thinking about this at this time, he has suffered such a big loss and can't help but look ugly with anger. You dare to go to Lang Yuan cave to cause trouble. When I tie you up and send you back to Hongliang Mountain, you must let Wuji give me an explanation. The blood bees were not caught, but these disciples of Hongliang Mountain could not escape. Master Shanshan, he has magical powers, and he is a peer with Taoist Wuji. These disciples of Taoist Wuji are not high-ranking figures, so how can they be his opponents? When they heard the words of Master Shangshan, a group of people in Hongliang Mountain were so angry that they were speechless. A golden rope flew out of the sleeve of Master Shangshan. The people in Hongliang Mountain were not happy at the sight. The immortal binding rope. Once this bundle of immortal ropes is released, even those with golden immortal level cultivation will have a hard time escaping. These disciples are not outstanding people with a name. They are still far away from the golden immortal level. If they are caught by this rope a bundle, I am afraid that even if you don't die, your vitality will be severely damaged, so everyone scrambles to escape for their lives. But how can these disciples be the opponents of the Supreme Being? Even if these people react quickly, the rope will rise in the wind, becoming longer and longer. It will be thrown out with a whoosh sound, turning into a dragnet, tightly binding a group of people. Live. Shangshan Genren has such great ability and great prestige. If he bullies the small with his great power, won't he be afraid of being laughed at in the future? To be continued. Canon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan ERWR. Chapter 1109. When the people in Hongliang Mountain were all ashen-faced, dejected, and bundled into a ball, Master Shangshan bundled these disciples up and was about to lift them up to go to Hongliang Mountain when a female voice suddenly rang out. The surprise was truly extraordinary. According to Master Shangshang's cultivation, if someone was hiding in the dark, he would definitely be able to detect it. However, at this time, he had no idea that there was anyone around him. It could be seen that the strength of the person coming was far beyond his imagination. He subconsciously the immortal binding rope was grasped tighter, and before she could speak, Lily fell to the ground in mid-air. Her figure appeared like an ordinary human girl, and she slowly walked towards Master Shangshan. The people in Lang Yuan cave instinctively snuggled up behind Master Shangshan. Although they couldn't feel Lily's cultivation, they looked at the master's appearance as if he was facing a formidable enemy, so they obviously knew what he was doing. Don't mind your own business. He had never seen this young girl before. Master Shangshan felt very bad for a moment. He didn't know Lily's origins or her cultivation level. He couldn't even see through what she was. He couldn't help but she frowned and scolded, but Lily smiled and said nothing. She took a step that didn't look big, but in 2 or 3 steps she came close to Master Shangshan. Master Shangshan wanted to hide instinctively, but in front of the girl, his speed was more than a little bit slower than hers, and he watched helplessly as Lily reached out and snatched the fairy binding rope he was holding in his hand. The immortal binding rope was originally a gift from his master, the Holy Ancestor, and had been refined by him. It was connected with his mind and could not be taken away by ordinary people. However, for some reason, it was caught by Lily at this time. Shangenren was unable to resist at all. The rope was easily snatched away by her. She pulled it casually and the rope broke with a pop sound. This rope was originally made by the Holy Ancestor by drawing the sinews of the white dragon of the East China Sea and refining them with the true fire of samadhi. It can defeat ghosts and gods, turn it into a snare, and is extremely strong. Even if the ordinary Deluo Jinxian is trapped in this bundle of immortal ropes, if he doesn't spend some effort. It is not easy to escape from birth, but at this moment, Lily was torn apart. Master Shangshan was shocked and wanted to stop him. It's too late. As soon as the rope was broken, the cave in Hongliang Mountain groaned and fell down, but an invisible layer supported the group of people, and Lily didn't look back. Why don't you each run for your lives? A group of disciples from Hongliang Mountain came to their senses and kowtowed to express their thanks. When Master Shangshan came back to his senses, his expression turned cold, and when he was about to step forward to arrest him, a layer of water curtain blocked his way. Lily's figure retreated further and further in the water curtain. If you have to spare others, spare them. Why don't you let them live? Humph. Master Shangshan tried his best, but he didn't know what the water curtain was made of. It firmly blocked his way. All the disciples in Langyuan cave watched helplessly as the people from Hongliang Mountain escaped, and saw their master's face was so angry. With his blue appearance, no one dared to speak. See you later. By the time most of the people in Hongliang Mountain had fled, it was probably impossible for Master Shangshan to catch up and kill them all. Only then did Lily smile softly, and her figure slowly disappeared into the air. The water curtain that originally blocked Master Shangshan broke apart with a swish sound. When he reached out to fish it out, the water vapor had turned into smoke. In the blink of an eye, then it disappeared completely. Master, who is the person who just appeared? After Lily left, the people from Langyuan cave carefully looked at Master Shangshan's face and asked. Let's talk about it when we get back. This is not Langyuan cave, Master Shangshan said with a cold face. A wave of cuffs. He rolled up a group of disciples in his sleeves and disappeared. In the Langyuan cave, a group of disciples knelt down in front of Master Shangshan and told the whole story of their enmity with the disciples of Hongliang Mountain. Senior brother Qian brought 10,000-year-old purple coral from the East China Sea. He also killed Moyokailan and took his blood. I opened the yin and yang and the combined mirror. But the people in Hongliang Mountain said that we were trying to seize the treasure, and they were entangled all the way. With no other choice, we had no choice but to compete with each other to determine the superiority. Unexpectedly, the disciples of both sides were harmed by the attack. The eight-mouthed fire spider was smashed by senior brother Qian with falling water drops, and a bloodworm flew in and bit several of our junior brothers to death. Maybe it has something to do with Hongliang Mountain, a female disciple continued and finished. Master Shangshan's face became livid and ugly. It's too much to bully someone. It's a shame that the evildoer escaped quickly, otherwise he would know Pandeo's methods. After he finished speaking, he pondered for a moment. I don't know whether the person who appeared today is an enemy or a friend. What she said when she left, Pandeo, seeing that the world is about to be in chaos, the demonic shadow appears, and there is someone who is difficult to distinguish between good and evil. I don't know whether it is a blessing or a curse for Langyuan Dong. What she uses is the water element, and it contains the power of the ancient world. Could it be that she is another hidden world? Has a great power been born? He frowned very tightly. Master Shangshan himself realized Taoism through water, and was much more sensitive to water than others. He muttered a few words to himself, and saw a look on his disciple's face. Looking confused, he sighed again and his eyes fell on Qi Yin. I blame your senior brother. If he hadn't been seriously injured that day and lost the sex's most precious life and death disc, why would we bother to imitate it now? The yin and yang and the combined mirror can only reflect the past and present origins of the things in the mirror. Compared with the best treasures such as the life and death disc, which can reveal life and death, it is still far behind. Now for this, he has formed a relationship with the people of Hongliang Mountain. Wuji Lao Tao is the best it's to protect his shortcomings. Now he is only surrounded by demonic energy and can't cause trouble for him. I'm afraid that after he gets rid of the demonic energy, he will come to trouble him when he comes out of seclusion. Let's forget the old and new grudges together. Thinking of this, Master Shangshan couldn't help but feel a headache. Qi Yin, you were born with a different fate. However, because I lost my life and death chart, I can't figure out your fate now. You will need to do big things in the future, and you must not act so impulsively. I didn't agree with you today. You beat the disciples of Wuliang Mountain with falling water drops until they were stunned. Although people who practice Taoism do not need to stick to small details and should not be timid, your character is too impulsive. Now that there is evil in the East, there will be a great disaster in the world soon. You have a strange destiny, and you may do great things in the future. My master cannot bear the evil karma you have planted today, and he will have evil consequences due to the solar eclipse. Therefore, you will be punished by entering a lotus pond and meditating for 2 years to get rid of the evil spirit in your heart. You can accept it? In the plot, Qi Yin also has a bad temper. He died in the mouth of a mountain leopard because of Qing Lian trying to save him. In order to take revenge, he embarked on the path of seeking immortality and seeking immortality. The fate pointed out by heaven was to prevent him from breeding inner demons in the future. Therefore, Qing Lian was resurrected later. It was precisely because Qing Lian was happy that Qing Lian was in a peaceful mood. Qing Lian died without saving him. He did not plant any cause and effect, so he later dealt with the demon. The spiritual platform in my heart is clear, I have fought with it several times, and I have not been eroded by it several times. Later, he held the dragon girl's tendon, wore dragon scale armor, drank the dragon girl's blood and obtained Pangu's spiritual power, and tied up the demon and subdued him. But this time it was different. He didn't save the python, and he didn't create good karma. Instead, he was stained with the blood bee because of the eternal red. He almost died at the hands of the blood bee before. Although Qing Lian did it for he died to save him, but it was not like in the plot that he died at the mouth of the mountain leopard to stop the mountain leopard. Instead, he died in order to detoxify Qi Yin and gave him the lotus heart to drink. Qing Lian had already gained spirituality early. After cultivating the human form, Lian Wuxin is not alive. At that time, Master Shangshan had a life and death chart and calculated that Qi Yin would be a person of great fortune in the future and would bring great opportunities to Langyuan Cave. Therefore, for the sake of his state of mind, he made great efforts to use ordinary lotus products to reach Qing Lian was resurrected, but this time Master Shangshan didn't know Qi Yin's future blessings. He could only roughly deduce that this child was extraordinary, so naturally he did not resurrect Qing Lian for him. The young man who guided him to become a disciple in Langyuan Cave that day had clearly said that as long as he worshipped at the gate of Langyuan Cave, Qing Lian would be alive one day. For this reason, he had gone through all kinds of hardships and learned skills from his master, and now it was not easy. After learning to this extent, Qing Lian was resurrected without any trace. He ran for Langyuan Cave, and today he injured the life of the eight-mouthed fire spider. It was obviously because he resented him for hurting the brothers in Langyuan Cave that he took a serious action. He didn't expect that when he came back at this time, will be punished by the master. If Qing Lian cannot survive being trapped in a pond for 2 years, what's the point of studying under her own master? It can be seen that the young man at the beginning was just coaxing himself. Evil. Are you dissatisfied? As soon as Master Shangshan finished speaking, he saw that Qi Yin was silent and did not say sincerely that the disciple respects his life. He couldn't help but become furious. He shouted sharply and raised his hands. Qi Yin's heart was pounding and he suddenly said, "Disciple is indeed dissatisfied. Although I hurt the lives of disciples in Hongliang Mountain today, it was clear that they bullied people too much in the beginning, so all the brothers had no choice but to take action. Although I struck harder, it was also because the eight-mouthed fire spider hurt people. There are too many reasons. Moreover, the eight-mouthed fire spider is also destined to suffer a fate. It is fire, and what he picked up was a drop of water. A drop of it hit it until its intestines were pierced and the belly was broken, revealing its original shape. It was actually because fire and water do not mix. If you take action when you are in a hurry, why would you think so much? As soon as these words were spoken, Master Shangshan did not expect that he would say a few words to him, but Qian would say a lot more. He couldn't help but become even more angry. When he was about to speak, Qian said, "Back then, I was told by someone that I would be able to resurrect Qinglian by going to Langyuan cave and worshipping my master as my teacher. Now it seems that that person has deceived me after all." After he finished speaking, he sighed in frustration. "Since I can't resurrect Qinglian, there's no point in me staying and becoming an immortal. It's better to say goodbye to Langyuan cave." Wait a minute. Master Shangshan was a little unhappy when he heard that Qian was leaving Langyuan cave at first, but he quickly captured the key point. Qian said, "The plot that changed that day because Lily snatched the life and death disc, at this time, it was once again set back on track under the arrangement of heaven. Whoever led you up the mountain to worship me as your teacher?" Master Shangshan asked, and Qian replied, "About 25-6, or 30-45. The disciple doesn't remember it either, he only remembers that he was a young man. When I thought about it more carefully, I couldn't explain it clearly. He said he was fate, and said that I would have a chance in the future." "What else did you say?" When he heard the word fate, Master Shangshan's heart skipped a beat, and Qian couldn't explain clearly. To be continued. Carrot. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Wan Erwr. Chapter 1110. This disciple is not that ignorant. At this time, he could not explain the other person's appearance vaguely. Master Shangshan pondered for a moment, and suddenly his scalp became numb. The devil appears suddenly. The world is in chaos. Fate, chance, could it be, could this person be, God? He kept the remaining words in his mouth, and Qian couldn't hear clearly. Just when he was about to ask, Master Shangshan had already begun to urge, "Keep on talking, and talk more. It is said that I have a destiny with Langyuan cave. There are things I can get inside, and it is also said that Qinglian will be resurrected." Qian was disheartened at this moment. As soon as he finished speaking, he knelt down and said, "Master, my disciple is unfilial and has been taught by his master for many years. Now." "Wait a minute," Master Shangshan interrupted him sharply, and started counting with his fingers. "Is it related to Langyuan cave?" "Something that can be obtained, something that can be obtained. One of the three great treasures of Langyuan cave, the life and death disc, has been lost now. Logo the river beads have been used by me to temporarily seal the canyon. Could it be that it is the list of gods?" Master Shangshan finally guessed the key point. At this time, his heart was like a stormy sea, and his mood was ups and downs. He counted with his fingers and frowned. After a long time, several disciples did not dare to speak out to interrupt his thoughts. Master Shangshan sighed. After a while, he seemed to have finally figured it out, and reached out to touch his face. "Beard. As expected, I thought you had a strange destiny as a teacher back then, but I couldn't figure it out." He pondered for a moment, then suddenly waved his sleeves. "Qian stays, and the rest of you go back first. Today you are acting recklessly, here. At this time, you need to act more restrained. This time you acted recklessly and started a fight with the people of Hongliang Mountain. resulting in the death and injury of the disciples in the cave. Although I will not let the people of Hongliang Mountain go unpunished, you must not go unpunished. Go back and stay in the lotus pond for a year. Don't go out this year, practice meditation, go, Master Shangshan finished. He waved his hand. Several disciples did not dare to be as angry and outspoken as Qi Yin. After hearing his words, they responded docilely and then each withdrew. When a few people left, only Qi Yin and Shangshan Zhenren were left in the cave. Only then did Shangshan Zhenzhen ask, "My teacher has calculated that you are closely related to the list of gods. Later, you will follow me to the pool of gods. If you can take this list, it proves that you are destined to this list, and you will save the world in the future. Common people, you are a man of great fortune. If you can't get this ranking, you have to leave the mountain. Even the poor will not stop you." Qi Yin worshipped under the disciple of Master Shangshan in his early years. Due to his unique destiny, although he was also taught by Master Shangshan, he had never been taken as seriously as he was at this moment. Being flattered, he respectfully accepted the offer of Master Shangshan. Only then did he summon Ziyun. Take Qi Yin to the Qingshen pond. The god-inviting pool in Langyuan cave is a forbidden area in the cave. It is usually guarded by a crane boy. Normal disciples are not allowed to step into this place. The pool is nourishing the artifacts with spiritual air. However, at this time, where the three major artifacts were originally stored, the plate of life and death has fallen into Lily's hands, and the Luhi pearl was used by Master Shangshan to seal the canyon to suppress the demonic energy of the devil. There is only a jade tablet of about 20 inches in the middle, standing on a high platform. At this time, it was shining with golden light, full of aura. This is the list of gods. When you worship at the gate of Langyuan cave, you must also know that this treasure is one of the three great treasures of Langyuan cave. In the curl of smoke, an arched sheep farm path leads to the inviting god pond. The surrounding smoke is formed by extremely pure spiritual energy, which is mutually moist with the divine object. The spiritual energy here is rich, and there are three great lotuses planted under the pond, which are in full bloom at this time. Qi Yin has been studying under his master for several years, and he naturally knows about the three great treasures of Langyuan cave. At this time, he did not expect that Master Shangshan would bring him here. He remembered what the young man had said to him that day. He said that Langyuan cave there is something that is destined for him. Qi Yin has never dared to think about anything else in these years. Unexpectedly, when he wanted to say goodbye to his master on a whim today, he was brought to this place by Master Shangshan. Remembering that Master Shangshan once said that he was a person with a unique destiny, and now pointed out one of the three artifacts of Langyuan cave to himself, Qi Yin felt a burning sensation in his heart and licked his lips. Could this be the list of gods? Master Shangshan nodded, yes. This list was made when our master, the patriarch of Meng and Zhejiang, visited Zhuzhou and obtained a spiritual jade. Although the life and death plate, the Luhi pearl and the Fengshen list are tied for one of the three major artifacts of Langyuan cave, it can be the two are not from the hands of Mengzhe. Mengzhe can be said to be the first person in the ancient continent. He has proved the Tao with his own life and has achieved the true result. Now he is a true saint. This list was made by him. Compared with the previous two, the list of gods has no effect at this time, but I can vaguely feel the extraordinariness of this thing, and I can feel its full spirituality from a distance. Although this object seems to have no effect at the moment, it is a real divine object, only for those who are destined to get it. Master Shangshan's eyes showed light, and he twirled his beard, although at this time he is not as good as the life and death disc. The Luo River Pearl and others can be used, but whoever controls this thing must be the co-master of the three realms in the future. The person who is in charge of this list uses his spiritual power to write on this list. Once a creature is on this list, no matter whether it has merit or not, when the three realms are unified, they will definitely have a place in the God realm and enjoy the incense from all directions. Supply. Once the name on it is erased, the divine root can be destroyed and its position can be reduced, which is extremely powerful. It is a pity that from the day this list was made, the founder of Menge and Zhejiang personally placed it in the pool to invite the gods. No one is destined to be on this list. Since you have been told by someone that you are destined to Lang Yuan, now that the world is in chaos and evil spirits are emerging, I think it's just the right time. Qi Yin, if you don't pick up this thing, when will you wait? Master Shangshan shouted loudly, and Qi Ying instinctively stood up and flew towards the list of gods. It is strange to say that in the past, no matter who the disciples were in front of this list of gods, they would be suppressed by the power of spiritual energy and dare not stand up. Even if the Luhi Pearl and the Life and Death Trap were placed together with the list of gods, they would not dare to stand on an equal footing with this thing. But placed it under the jade bangle, but now Qi Yin leaned over, the luster of the jade bangle not only did not affect him, but made him approach easily. At this time, there is something that Master Shangshan still does not understand. Qi Yin is the person in the three realms who is destined to unify the three realms. The people of the three realms have long been suffering from turmoil. It is time for a great emperor to unify the troubled times. It is a pity that this disciple has been a disciple for many years because he has never thought of this before. So much so that it took so long to discover. The list of gods was held in Qi Yin's hand. The jade list that Patriarch Mengzhe put on that day was something that even Master Shangshan himself could not move. At this time, Qian easily held it in his hand. Seeing this scene, Master Shangshan breathed a sigh of relief. His guess was correct. Qi Yin was indeed the person the three realms were waiting for. If the person who guided him was not his master, it was very likely that he was the incarnation of heaven. Sure enough, there was an arrangement somewhere, and this time Lang Yuan cave was among them. I'm afraid that Taoism will be passed down for thousands of generations in the future. Now that it is certain that Qi Yin is the destined person, Master Shangshan cannot let him enter the lotus pond to meditate and practice for another 2 years. This disciple will do great things in the future, so he will naturally cultivate Qi Yin carefully. Demonic energy is now emerging in the canyon, and the world will be in chaos. Today, a girl with great power appears. There are too many variables, and the matter is related to the future of Lang Yuan cave. Master Shangshan decided to wait for the rest and went to see the patriarch himself to ask for advice. I also heard that Qi Yin's purpose when he went up the mountain was to save Qinglian. For ordinary people, it would be very difficult to bring the dead back to life, but for the Supreme Being, although it is a bit troublesome, it is not difficult. Especially after Tiandao selected Qi Yin that day, he naturally thought about these causes and effects. The relationship between Qi Yin and Qinglian started when his mother ate lotus seeds and retained the lotus heart. There was a real marriage between the two. If Qinglian really died, many things would change for heaven. What's more, whether in the plot or now, Qinglian was the reason why Qian embarked on the road to becoming a god, and as a result, Qinglian died. It is easy to leave inner demons in Qi Yin's heart. Therefore, when Tiandao was instructing Qian, he left Qinglian with a trace of vitality. There are many rare treasures in Lang Yuan cave. When Qinglian showed his true form that day, his soul was collected by heaven into an ordinary lotus seed and asked Qian to protect it. Now that she was going to be resurrected, Qi Yin naturally handed over this thing. As long as the soul exists, it is not difficult to reshape a physical body for it, but it is impossible for Qinglian to regain her former cultivation level. Fortunately, Qi Yin doesn't care about how capable Qinglian is. He just hopes that Qinglian can be by his side, and that is enough. Over the years, he has already understood what kind of existence Qinglian means to him. Therefore, after knowing that Master Shangshan can give Qinglian rebirth, he inspired the grateful Master Shangshan to admit his mistake again and offered a new life for Qinglian. I had previously stated that I wanted to leave the school and regretted it. When Qi Yin and Shangshan Zhenren were on the right track of the plot, and even without the calculation of the life and death chart, the Fengshen list still found its correct owner, Lily meddled in some other business and then left the mountain road. Lily's character was not someone who cared about right and wrong. The reason for taking action today was because of the blood bee. There is a close relationship between Hongliang Mountain and Langyuan Cave. If the two factions were fighting in an ordinary competition, she would not take action. However, it was precisely because of the unintentional appearance of blood bees later that they sucked up several disciples of Langyuan Cave, causing Master Shangshan to mistakenly believe that the blood bee belonged to the group of people from Hongliang Mountain. The queen blood bee saw the opportunity and ran away early. In order to clean up the mess, Master Shangshan did not teach it a lesson. Instead, he vented his anger on the Hongliang Mountain group and locked up all his disciples. Got up. If the blood bee hadn't suddenly appeared to disrupt the situation, today's incident might not have resulted in the group of people being tied up with immortal ropes by Master Shangshan. The blood bee's change was caused by Lily, and its actions were naturally caused by Lily. It would be fine if you didn't see it, but since you saw it, Lily certainly wouldn't ignore it. She stopped Master Shangshan and waited until the group of disciples from Hongliang Mountain disappeared before leaving. Unexpectedly, not far away, when they left the scope of Langyuan Cave, these disciples were still carrying the eight-mouthed fire spider from a distance. The corpse waits in the distance. When Lily suddenly appeared, the group of people were startled. When they came back to their senses and saw that she was the one who saved everyone before, the group of Hongliangshan disciples all crawled down. Thank you, immortal girl, for saving me. Due to the death of the Langyuan Cave disciples, Master Shangshan got really angry today and even took out the fairy ropes. If he beat a group of people in anger and reincarnated, with the Taoist's current situation is probably really difficult for him to compete with. It's just that the disciples are not as skilled as others, so they can only hold their noses and admit it. They didn't expect to be rescued halfway. This group of people had just offended Master Shangshan, causing them to run away without running far. Instead, they were waiting here to thank themselves. Lily was a little surprised and nodded. You're welcome, it's just a matter of convenience. The fairy lady did it casually, but she saved the lives of Pandeo and others. Although we are not human beings, we also know how to be grateful. One of the thin boys shook his two green long braids and said, easy to teach. Immortal Ant learned that there is no way to go to the north. There is a demonic energy growing. Today's kindness, if the fairy ant has any mission in the future, she only needs to send people to Hongliang Mountain. The poor Taoist Jin Chan boy will definitely go there. The rest of the people also responded one by one. These people were not highly cultivated people, but they were also very loyal. A few of them were still carrying the body of the fire spider, with expressions of grief and indignation on their faces. Lily thought for a while. In this case, I also want to tell you a piece of news. The world is about to be in chaos. Hongliangshan can protect itself wisely. Her voice was still there when she spoke, but her figure gradually disappeared. These people are just cannon fodder in the plot. This time the battle of the gods, because Qi Yin is the person appointed by heaven. Therefore, Langyuan Cave definitely had an advantage in the battle of the conferred gods. Judging from the fact that Taoist Wuji was infected with demonic energy at the beginning of the conferred gods, I am afraid that all the people in Hongliang Mountain are minor players in the war. I have a good impression of the loyalty of these people, and I would like to give them a word of warning. Maybe they will be prepared in case of real chaos. Hongliangshan will not be in bad luck. And most importantly, if her words can really have any effect, if these people are destined to die in the conferring God war, if I remind myself that if they are prepared and do not die, they will definitely disrupt the arrangements of heaven. Then heaven will definitely feeling more troublesome. If these people don't listen, or it's of no use, what will be the result anyway? They only have themselves to blame. 2 years passed in a flash. The demonic energy of Zhuzhou continent spread faster, and the Luhi pearl that suppressed the canyon in Lang Yuan cave that day had faint signs of being unable to hold up. Such a divine object, which was used as the center point to suppress the demonic energy that day, has actually begun to show signs of fragmentation in the past 2 months. Master Shanshan of Lang Yuan cave spent the past 2 years carefully educating Qi Yin and teaching him magic. He even took him 9 days away to listen to a sutra lecture in Meng and Zhejiang, which benefited him greatly. In 2 years, Qi Yin's whole person seemed to have been transformed. Now the demonic energy spread too fast. Although Master Shanshan was reluctant to let go of teaching his apprentices, he also knew the priorities and came to the edge of the canyon. The surrounding demonic energy has spread a lot, and shadows can be faintly seen all around. Once infected by this demonic energy, the mild case will breed inner demons, and the severe case will fall into the demonic path and be spiritually contaminated. Master Shanshan saw the treasure in Lang Yuan cave. When I saw the cracks on the Luhi pearl, my heart ached, but it didn't show on my face at all. The canyon is surrounded by disciples of various sections. When the disciples in Lang Yuan cave learned about the arrival of Master Shanshan, they came over early in the morning. After seeing the seriousness of the situation, Master Shanshan couldn't help but ask. The demonic energy is much more powerful than before. The disciples reported the recent situation in detail and did not dare to hide it at all. The real situation was far more serious than Master Shanshan thought. He frowned. This Luo Hezu, the spiritual energy, is no longer enough, and now there is still a trace of black energy wrapped around it. The golden light is very weak. I am afraid that even if the demonic energy can be suppressed, it will not be suppressed for too long. This treasure should have been destroyed, and it seemed impossible to repair it in the future. It was a pity that such a sacred object was lost. He sighed. Have the people from Hongliang Mountain notified you? A few months ago, Taoist Wuji had become much more awake. The people from Wuliang Mountain had found rare treasures for him, which had driven away a lot of his demonic energy. The situation was gradually getting better than before. 2 months ago, Master Shanshan had thought of having a relationship with Taoist Master Wuji. Taoist Wuji discussed the matter, but Taoist Wuji always refused because his vitality was damaged. This impulsive Taoist at that time did not know what happened, but now he has learned a lot, and Lang Yuan cave is ahead in everything. The people guarding the canyon were not as easy to deceive as before, but the Lang Yuan cave disciples suffered a lot of losses, which made Master Shanshan feel distressed when he thought about it. Notified, only that Wuji has been notified, but there is no further comment when it comes to this. Not only Shanshan Zinzan is angry, but also a group of disciples in Lang Yuan cave. People in Hongliang Mountain hide when trouble occurs. Where has this happened before? Nowadays, these people are all very skilled in learning, and they have caused countless casualties to the brothers of their own sect. The Luhi pearl can't last long, and the sky will be in chaos. You should guard this place first, and be sure to send more spiritual power into the spirit pearl. I want to go to Jushan, please take action from the Master Taoist Wuji couldn't resist. To come forward, Master Shanshan himself did not have enough cultivation, so he had to find the Saint Mengzhe. A month later, he invited Mengzhe to go to Zhu. When Mengzhe saw the demonic energy, he called out the name of Ma Jiang. It was only at this point in the plot that the identity of the monster in the canyon, which should have been exposed long ago, was finally revealed. Unexpectedly, the monster in the canyon was related to Pangu, and was such a powerful thing. Master Shanshan was deeply embarrassed. Taking advantage of the reputation of Meng and Zhejiang, he invited all the major monks from all over the world to go to Lang Yuan cave to discuss countermeasures with everyone. Xiu Jing rushed to Lang Yuan cave. When Lily learned the news, she also transformed into an ordinary Taoist nun and blended in among these people. In mid-air, Mengzhe was sitting cross-legged on the purple clouds, and a group of creatures were densely sitting below, waiting for his sermon. The way of heaven is unfathomable, and what ordinary people can see is only 1/10 of a million, not even one. Opportunity, Lang Yuan Mountain is extremely quiet. Many people don't even dare to move. Many spirits lie down below in obedience. Spirits are more difficult to cultivate than humans, and their understanding is not as high as humans. It is rare to have the opportunity to listen to the sermon. Listen to Mengzhe's words and you can win. Spirits and monsters have been cultivating for tens of millions of years, and many spirits and monsters are sometimes shrouded in white light. It is obvious that they have realized something because of listening to the Tao, and their cultivation has greatly increased. After preaching for 3 days, Meng and Zhejiang finally stopped. "Excuse me, Patriarch, there is a difficulty in the ancient world. How can we resolve it?" As soon as Meng Zhedao finished speaking, Master Shangshan couldn't help but speak. People in the ancient continent were very concerned about this issue. After hearing this, they couldn't help but raise their heads. Head. This object is the incarnation of Pangu's inner demon. Pangu gained great merit by opening the sky. Even if this inner demon is not 1/10,000th of Pangu's strength, it is really difficult to deal with. After finishing speaking, Master Shanshan has been hiding in Hongliang Mountain for the past 2 years. Taoist Wuji, who exorcised the demonic energy, also spoke slowly. He was wearing a white robe, tall and thin, and his face was a little pale. Although his eyes were clear and calm, it was obvious that the influence of the demonic drop on him that day was still there. Even if it was the same in the past, the disciples went to the canyon, but they still couldn't resist the demonic energy descending from the devil. If it were other disciples, how should they respond? As soon as this question was uttered, Meng Zhe closed his eyes slightly. Heaven has already made arrangements to deal with the people who have been conquered by the devil. Now that they have been born, where is the best? The disciples are here, we just have to deal with Mojang. Although there are people arranged by heaven, but even if Qiyin is different today, it is too difficult to compare with Mojang. To untie the bell, you need the person who tied it. The devil is born because of Pangu. If you want to conquer it, you need Pangu. Meng Zhe's words made many people laugh bitterly. Master Shanshan couldn't help but say, "Master, this is it makes sense, but the great god died of exhaustion when he opened the sky. His breath turned into wind, rain, thunder, and lightning, and his body turned into mountains and rivers. He has been dead for countless millions of years, so how could he invite Pangu? Subdue the devil? Master, I have something to say." As soon as Master Shangshan finished speaking, a man's voice suddenly rang out among the listeners below. Master Shangshan frowned. Apparently on such an occasion, a disciple suddenly spoke and said he was very unhappy, but he soon saw a young man in white stand up from among the meditating disciples. Lily opened her eyes and took a look, and happened to see the man who broke into his sea that day and was taken away by him. The young man with a life and death plan stood up at this time. "Yuli, what do you have to say?" Master Shangshan asked, and the young man knelt down respectfully. "That day, my disciple met Master Zhu, a disciple of Hongliang Mountain, and during a fight with him, he mistakenly entered a place that was full of spiritual energy. And there is also chaos spiritual power." As soon as the young man finished speaking, even if Meng Zhe was still there, the creatures below couldn't help but take a breath when they heard this. The world has been split open for such a long time, and something as rare as chaos spiritual power has been dispersed tens of millions of years ago. But at this time, some people actually say that there is still chaos spiritual power in this world. This news is tantamount to the revelation of Mo Jiang's identity obviously caused a stir among a group of people. The young man ignored the shock of the creatures below, and then spoke again. "There is a sea in the spiritual power. The disciple once calculated the life and death chart. The sea was formed from Pangu's tears, and a dragon girl was born in the sea. She was born no more than 100,000 years ago. Time, this dragon girl was born from Pangu's tears, and she was born with Pangu's power. If we find her, I wonder if she can deal with the devil. He finally said it. Lily sat below, curling her lips. To be continued. P.S. 2 updates in 1. This chapter is 2 updates in 1. Cannon Fodder Strategy. Author, Juan ERWR. Chapter 1111. The scene in the plot of figuring out how to deal with the devil is very similar to now. Back then, the young man in Lang Yuan cave accidentally broke into the sea at the top of the world, snatched the dragon girl's first Yuan, destroyed her foundation and took away her spiritual root. After leaving the sea area, I learned that somewhere in the world there is a top of the world formed by Pangu's tears. A dragon girl was born in it, which could help her seal the demon. Later, when the major mountain gates in Kyushu discussed how to deal with the demon, the young man once said he achieved great success by revealing the secret. Master Shangshan then used the life and death chart to calculate the method of entering the sea. Everything has its own arrangement by heaven. Finally, under the guidance of heaven, he passed 5 levels and killed 6 generals. He successfully passed various tests and became more powerful and successfully entered the sea. It seemed that everything had been predestined by God. The scene in the plot was actually played out in front of Lily. She saw Master Shangshan waiting for him, and his eyes lit up when he heard the young man's words. The area outside the sea belongs to the top of the world, and is no longer within the scope of the prehistoric continent. Not even the law of heaven can intervene in it. If it is not a predestined person, even if the law of heaven knows that there is such a place, it still seems to have no key. No. When Master Shangshan and others in mid-air heard the young disciple's words, they were all overjoyed. Is this true? I don't dare to hide anything. The young man who was called Yali by Master Shangshan nodded seriously, and explained how he accidentally fell into the sea after being injured and his foundation was greatly damaged, and discovered the mysterious sea. Met the dragon girl who was born in the sea, and when she discovered that the dragon girl was born under the nourishment of Pangu's tears, she told her everything she wanted to take away her foundation. In the end, he was trapped by the dragon girl and sent out of the sea. And even the life and death disc was lost in it. Everything was said. In front of Master Shangshan, Yuli didn't dare to hide anything until he told the whole story. Master Shangshan frowned. The dragon girl was only born more than 100,000 years ago, and she was not a big deal at first, but she was probably born from the tears of the great god Pangu, so her methods were extraordinary. The disciple was not aware of it, and was driven out of the sea by her, and even lost his disciple. Heavy treasure. After Yuli said this, Master Shangshan sighed. It's a pity that the life and death disc is lost. Even if we now know the news about such a dragon girl, in the sea area mentioned by the disciple, Master Shangshan is still there anyway. He couldn't figure it out, so he couldn't help but look towards Meng and Zhejiang. Please give me some advice from the ancestor. Everything in the world comes into being. Meng Zhe looked calm. That face showed a look that seemed kind and indifferent. Pangu's heart demon phantom, he was born as Pangu, and he died as Pangu. The tears that Pangu shed that day created a sea area. Everything in the world always has its reason. Pangu's heart, the demon phantom, is that calamity, and the dragon girl is the person who was born in response to the calamity, and in the end she naturally deserves to die in response to the calamity. The creatures on the 9 provinces continent are destined to encounter such a catastrophe. Able to unify the 3 realms. Heaven is ruthless. Meng Zhe opened his eyes quickly and glanced in the direction of Lily. The face was obviously ordinary. When he first looked at his eyes, he didn't think it was extraordinary, but when he looked closer, he couldn't describe the feeling. As if he had seen through everything he was thinking and feeling when he looked at her, Lily squinted her eyes, and Meng Zhe closed her eyelids again. Master Ren Shangshan will ask again. A group of purple clouds gradually lifted him up under his body, and his figure quickly disappeared into the depths of Lang Yuan Mountain. All living beings bowed to their ancestors and left. Master Shangshan was depressed but did not dare to say anything, so he had to bid farewell to his teacher respectfully. He didn't get up until Meng Zhe's figure was no longer visible. This trip to Meng and Zhejiang made him understand two things. One was that the monster in the canyon was Pangu's inner demon. The other was that it was not impossible to subdue this demon. As long as he found something related to Pangu, it is not impossible to subjugate it. Now the news about things related to Pangu has become clearer, but where the sea area is not clear. The prehistoric continent is now suffering from a catastrophe that will never happen in 10,000 years. You should all work together to overcome this difficulty. I think everyone has heard clearly the words of the ancestor before. I wonder if any of you know the news about the sea area. There is no life and death plan. Presumably, Master Shangshan was at his wit's end when faced with such a situation. He simply asked about the creatures in Langyuan cave who came to listen to the sermons today. These creatures came from thousands of miles away in order to listen to the sermons in Meng and Zhejiang. Maybe some of them knew the news about the sea area. As soon as Master Shangshan finished speaking, a big man with an eagle's beak hesitated for a moment, then shook his head. I have lived for thousands of years, and I think I have seen a lot. Dragon Girl has also seen him, but the Taoist master said the sea area mentioned has never been heard of, and the Dragon Girl has never been seen. As soon as the big man finished speaking, many people nodded one after another. Lily sat in the crowd, lowered her head, and the people next to her were talking about this dragon. The whereabouts of the woman. Did I remember it wrong? Taoist Wuji suddenly spoke. As soon as he said this, many people were stunned for a moment and stopped talking. Master Shangshan frowned, with a look of displeasure on his face. Brother Taoist, be careful what you say. Yu Li is a Taoist. How can he dare to speak so freely when such a matter is so important? It would have been fine if he didn't refute. Once he opened his mouth to refute, Taoist Wuji was immediately unconvinced. How can I not remember it wrong? I have lived for hundreds of thousands of years, and I have never heard of the existence of the sea outside the sky, nor have I ever heard of it. I have never heard of a dragon girl born from this sea. Before he could finish his words, Master Shangshan laughed twice and interrupted him. The world is so big, there are all kinds of wonders, and there are things that my Taoist brother has never seen before. Things, this is not unusual. If it hadn't been for the appearance of the devil this time, Pandeo would not have believed that Pangu had left behind the phantom of his inner demon after he opened the sky that day. The phantom of the inner demon is what everyone has seen. The dragon girl is just a word of mouth. There is no real evidence and no one can testify. Who dares to believe it is true? Taoist Wuji and Master Shangshan were originally at odds with each other. Although they reluctantly cooperated this time because the matter was so important, when they said something wrong at this time, the two started arguing again. At this moment, we are still in the territory of Langyuan Mountain. Meng and Zhejiang were preaching here before. So many creatures came to listen to the sermon. The old Taoist Wuji suffered a loss once, but his temper was still so violent. Master Shangshan glanced at him. Pandeo believes it is true. It is strange to say that Pandeo actually remembered something. 2 years ago, when the people from Hongliang Mountain broke into the territory of Langyuan Mountain because of yin and yang and the combination of mirrors, they had an affair with the disciples of Langyuan Cave. At that time, when Pandeo captured Dao brother's son, a young girl took action. I don't know where this girl came from, and her technique was of the water system and contained the power of the ancient world. It seems to be in line with what Yu Li said. The words were not finished. Taoist Wuji was furious. Okay. You, the Supreme Being, lured me into the Devil's Falling Valley, infected my body with devilish energy, and then took advantage of me to practice in seclusion to bully my disciples. You are really bullying me too much. Even though I, Wuji, am still injured, I am not afraid of you. Brother Taoist, please don't. Before Master Shangshan could finish his words, Taoist Wuji had a dark expression on his face at this time. Not wanting to talk to him anymore, he stretched out his hand and took out a red blood whip. Master Shangshan's face changed as soon as he saw it, a magic whip. He knew that this old man was difficult to deal with. The cause of Qi Yinzhang that day, as a result of today's consequences, Master Shangshan was still thinking about being stopped by Lily that day, but he didn't expect that his unintentional words made Taoist Wuji very angry. In Langyuan Mountain, he didn't care about his master's face and started fighting in public. This god-beating whip also has a great origin. It is an artifact that is not inferior to the Feng Shen Bang. And because the Feng Shen Bang has its own mission from the day it was cast, it is not used for combat, so in terms of lethality, it is not as good as this whip. The divine whip is powerful. The body of this whip is made from the tendons of a divine dragon that has been around for more than 1,000,000 years. It is calcined with the fire of the 9 heavens and soaked with spiritual energy. It is extremely powerful. If your cultivation level is lower, you will be touched by this whip. With one whip, the body will die, and even the soul may not be able to escape. Even if the Supreme Master has a high level of cultivation, if he is hit hard by this whip, it will have a great impact on him. At this critical moment of life and death, he was obviously discussing the important matter of fighting against the devil, but Wuji Laodao only cared about his own personal interests and ignored the great righteousness. In addition, this divine whip is really powerful. If Wuji Laodao was at his peak, ordinary Deluo Jingxian would probably have to turn around and leave when he saw him taking out this whip. Even if he is still injured now, because he has the whip in his hand, he can. Shan Zhenren didn't dare to be too big, so he woke up and took out his magic weapon. These two people were both extremely powerful figures in the ancient continent. When they started fighting, even though they tried their best to control it, they still caused great damage. Many people the creatures avoided and fled, and Shangshan gradually started to show his true fire, and met with Taoist Wuji to go to Jushan to see each other. The two hit it off, and each disappeared without a trace. Many creatures in Langyuan cave who went to listen to the sermon dispersed in all directions. When Master Shangshan returned to Langyuan cave more than 10 days later with an ugly expression on his face, the creatures that had gone to Langyuan cave that day had almost left. Returning to Langyuan cave, Master Shangshan first summoned his disciple Yu Li and asked him in detail about the outer sea. He also asked him about the appearance and cultivation of the dragon girl. How did Yu Li enter the outer sea that day? In fact, he himself can't even tell. Pangu gave birth to inner demons before his death, but he shed a drop of tears to conceive a dragon girl for later use. In fact, everything had been arranged for a long time. Yu Li had a chance to enter the sea, and that was his own cause and effect. But because Lily was not the original owner this time, Yali did not take advantage of Lily, and the destroyed foundation was not repaired without the power of the ancient times. Yali did not become a Deluo Jingxian like in the plot, and he even lost his life and death disc. There is no way to help Qian like in the plot. At this time, when Master Shangshan asked about the location of the sea area, he could not tell how he entered. On the other hand, when talking about Lily's appearance, he still remembered it clearly, but it was a pity that he didn't know the location of the sea outside the territory. What's the use of knowing the dragon girl's cultivation and appearance? In desperation, Master Shangshan made the same decision as in the plot. He decided to send Qian to find the sea of the sea. From the perspective of Master Shangshan, since heaven has selected Qi Yin as the destined person on the list of gods, and he will be the one to unify the 3 realms in the future, then instead of wandering around like a headless fly, it is better to let Qi Yin try his luck. If he is really destined for this great event, then heaven will have arrangements for how he will enter the outer sea. He summoned Qian and handed him some self-defense treasures from Langyuan cave. He also handed the list of gods into Qian's hand. Although this thing is not ready for use now, it is destined to you. It was made by the ancestor himself, and it can save your life at the critical moment. You should be more careful while you are away. Qing Lian is alive now, and after a year, I will reshape her body and bring her back to life. Qian nodded. Yes, for more than a year, the spread of demonic energy has become faster and faster, and almost half of the entire Kyushu continent has been shrouded in the shadow of demonic energy. With the presence of demonic energy, the spiritual energy was greatly reduced, and plague disasters occurred one after another. More living beings began to shorten their lifespans, and very few were able to achieve enlightenment. Human beings pray for the blessings of immortals every day. War breaks out among human beings year after year. The Supreme Being has personally visited the location where the devil descended several times, injecting spiritual energy into Luhi Pearl, but this seal is only a drop in the bucket for the growth rate of Majiang. Luhi Pearl has developed more cracks in more than a year. His whole body began to turn gray-white, and Master Shangshan had been stationed beside the canyon every day since half a month ago, not daring to take more than half a step away. Did Qian get any news about the dragon girl? When the crane boy came in from outside, Master Shangshan, who was meditating, asked. The crane boy shook his head. Senior brother Qian never got the news about the dragon girl, but in Langyuan cave, Qinglian has been resurrected. The demonic energy has dispersed. The sky will be in chaos. Master Shangshan sighed and shook his head. It's too late. We need to find another way. Summon Qian back. Luhi Pearl can't be defended anymore. When Master Shangshan said this, he had already lost his heart to guard the canyon, and he hurried back to Langyuan cave. There was only a bang sound, and the sound of landslides and ground cracking was heard. The surrounding mountains and rivers seemed to be shaking, startling many creatures and fleeing in all directions. A large amount of demonic energy spread rapidly. After Lu Hezu had no spiritual energy injected into it, he persisted for several seconds. In 2001, one of the three great treasures of Langyuan cave was finally destroyed. Master Shangshan gritted his teeth in pain, and after regaining consciousness, he rushed to Langyuan cave. Qian had already been waiting in the cave. He had been away for more than a year. But the whereabouts of the dragon girl were not found. But this year he has changed. He looks much calmer. The master and the disciple met at this time but did not care to exchange greetings. The world would be in chaos if they did not take this opportunity to subdue the devil. Even though Qian had the conferred gods list in his hand, he did not have the great merit to activate the conferred gods list. Even if you have a treasure mountain in your hand, it is useless. Now that the devil's energy has appeared, this demon can no longer be trapped as a master. The whereabouts of the dragon girl have not been found yet. Heaven has its own arrangements. Could it be? Master Shangshan is very anxious. This time, for the battle of conferring gods, because of Qi. The reason is that he is a disciple of Langyuan Dong. In order for Langyuan Dong to occupy a favorable position in the battle to confer gods in the future, Master Shangshan not only mixed Langyuan Dong into it, but also destroyed the Luhi Pearl, the most precious treasure in the section. The disciples of Langyuan cave have been guarding the canyon for several years, but they have lost many outstanding disciples. Now their strength is not as good as before. If there is an accident in the battle of the gods, then Langyuan cave will really lose more than the gain this time. Before Qian could speak, a girl's voice suddenly sounded. When I was in the Lianqing pond, I once heard a fish demon say that in the bitter cold land of the far north, there was a beautiful girl named Musuan. She lived in the far north and made a living by fishing. One day when he was fishing at the seaside, he was met by a descendant of Zug, who was greedy for his beauty and raped him. Master Shangshan was discussing business with Qian, but he didn't expect someone to suddenly come in and speak. He was surprised at first. When he came back to his senses and turned around to look, he saw a gentle and beautiful girl in Xingyi staring at Qian with a smile and silent affection in her eyes. Qinglian. When Qian saw Qinglian appearing, he couldn't help but stood up and ran towards her. Qinglian suppressed the excitement in her heart, reached out and pulled his palm, and then turned around to look. According to Master Shangshan, according to legend, Zug was transformed by fleas on Pangu's body, and his descendants raped Musun. Musun became pregnant on the 7th day and was born on the 10th. As a descendant of the revolution, she gave birth to a baby and was cursed to become a monster with human head and fish tail. Master Shangshan and his disciples listened quietly to King Lian's words. Although Musun is an ordinary human being, he combined with Zug's descendants and ate their flesh and blood. Since Zug was transformed by fleas on Pangu's body, Zug's blood must be it has the spirit of Pangu. But, where can we find the descendants of Zug now, after the prehistoric period, with the death of Pangu, the heaven and the earth separated? Many creatures in the prehistoric period died of spiritual energy exhaustion. Zug was not spared either. Although there were people on the Kyushu continent such a legend, but when things come to an end, where can we find its descendants? The world is so big, it's like finding a needle in a haystack, it's really difficult. Hearing Qian's words, Qing Lian laughed playfully. Why do we need to search for Zug's descendants? Musun had sex with Zug's descendants and ate their bones and blood. If the legend is true, she must also have Pangu's spiritual power in her body. Even if it is weak, it can be compared to the ancestors of Meng and Zhejiang. As I said, the person who tied the bell needs to be tied to untie the bell. Maybe this method can be tried. She is still the playful and cute look before, even though the two of them have been separated for so many years. Qian has even grown up. Like this, her appearance was very different from before, but now in front of her, Qian felt as if the two of them had never been separated. He stared at Qing Lian in a daze, which made King Lian's face turn slightly red. He lowered his head and stretched out his hand to rub the corners of his clothes. Musun was raped in the far north, so he was cursed and could not leave that sea area for the rest of his life. If you want to find her, you must be better than it's easier to find the descendants of Dragon Girl and Zug. I just heard that the real person is worried about the world's affairs now, and I know that Qian is also contributing to these things. I suddenly remembered this matter, and I don't know if it is true. She looked pitiful, which made Qiying feel hot in his heart. Master Shangshan couldn't help but want to hold his hands and laugh. He felt that he had listened to Yu Li before and believed that the Dragon Girl was the only clue to this matter, but he had really wasted a lot of time. No wonder that when Tiandao asked Qian to go up the mountain to worship him as his teacher, he also said that Qing Lian would live. It is probably because besides Long Nu being the one who can answer the bell for this matter, Musun should also be one of the clues. Master Shangshan twisted his beard and smiled, and nodded, okay. If things happen here, Qian will destroy the demons, gain great merits, and be in charge of the list of gods in the 3 realms. Qing Lian will definitely contribute the most, and this kind of blessing must be shared by Qing Lian. I don't care about merit. If Qian can find the whereabouts of the Dragon Girl, that would be the best. But it's just that I didn't think of it. I don't ask for blessings. As long as I can be with Qian, I will be satisfied. Yes, when Qing Lian said this, Qiying was moved. He couldn't help but hold him in his arms. It's just that Musun is an ordinary woman. But according to what the fish demon said, after having intercourse with a descendant of Zug, she obtained the essence of magical power and was reborn. And because she ate her own bones and blood, her strength was extraordinary. She grew up although she was cursed and one of her legs turned into fish tails and could no longer walk. It was said that she had a voice as beautiful as nature. If she opened her mouth to sing, any man would be obsessed with her voice. He dialed it himself and was killed by her. King Lian's reminder didn't take Qian's notice seriously. In my heart, no matter how beautiful a woman is, she's not even 1/10 as good as you. I don't even look at anyone else, I just don't listen to what she says. After Qian said this, King Lian's face turned slightly red, and Master Shangshan also nodded. He relied on his advanced cultivation, but he was just a woman and an ordinary human being. Even though she had some divine power, how could she be compared with a Deluo Jinxian like him who had been cultivating for many years? In addition, although the Master Shangshan looks like a man, he is actually transformed into a human form by enlightening the Tao through water. When water is clear, there is no turbidity. If he is pure himself, then why should he be afraid of that woman's evil voice deceiving gods? After some discussion among several people, Master Shangshan first asked his disciples to go to the far north to check whether the matter was true. At the same time, while making preparations, he informed Hung Liangshan and others about the matter to the disciples in the cave. If what Qinglian said is true, Master Shangshan is going to set off in person with Qi Yin and others on this trip. After many Jinxian level cultivators in Kyushu knew that there was a solution to the devil's surrender, the disciples that Master Shangshan sent out to find out whether this matter was true also came back and informed him that Master Shangshan was indeed there. In this matter, one of his disciples was even killed by Musun because of the investigation of Musun's location. After confirming Musun, even if his disciples suffered losses because of this, Master Shangshan was not angry but happy at the moment. Due to the emergency, the spread of evil energy was now difficult to control, and time was not waiting for anyone, so Master Shangshan was traveling decided to take the mountain tribe there. The mountain tribe is good at making battle clothes and armor. Musun's scales can be made into a battle robe. As long as Qi Yin puts this battle robe on Qi Yin, when Qi Yin fights the demon Zhang, the battle robe contains Pangu's spiritual power. So it is the demonic nemesis that makes it difficult to break through the armor, allowing Qi Yin to stay clear and not be obsessed by the demonic energy. To be continued.